Watch your back, I do the talking over. Say, I want to chop my life. I want to be happy. I want to dance and party. Feel the rhythm of my body. I just wanna party every day. I just wanna party every day. So pass me the dutchie. Pretty girl, come wine pon the cocky. 10 toes, one girl, make it touch it, touch it, touch it, touch it, touch it, touch it. Pass me the dutchie. Pretty girl, come wine pon the cocky. 10 toes, one girl, make it touch it, touch it, touch it, touch it, touch it, touch it, touch it. Puff, puff, pass. My Mary Jane. I'm high on life, wanna meditate. So allow me, make I enjoy life. Cause problem not the finish, oh. Every day different wahala. Problem not the finish, oh. Pass me the dutchie. Pretty girl, come wine pon the cocky. 10 toes, one girl, make it touch it, touch it, touch it, touch it, touch it, touch it. Pass me the dutchie. Pretty girl, come wine pon the cocky. 10 toes, one girl, make it touch it, touch it, touch it.
Get Channel Africa on DSTV audio bouquet. Channel 802.
Girl, you are the queen. Atasi dream, but no that you shuku. My lady, you are the queen. Anything you want, just let me die. Do.
You're the only one I've been waiting for. You're the only one I've been running to. You'll be my shade in a rainy day, baby.
Baby, you amuse me.
Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
6 o'clock Central African Time it is. This is Channel Africa. Good morning. My name is Asanda Beda. The show is Rise and Shine.
Here's the news with Jalani Tulongwethe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning. Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi says Rwanda is violating its commitments under a peace deal mediated by Washington. This is despite President Tshisekedi and Rwanda's Paul Kagame having reaffirmed their commitments to a U.S.-brokered deal reached in June to stabilize the vast country and open the way for more Western mining investment. Both Kagame and Tshisekedi maintain that they will honor the deal. Police in southeast Nigeria's Imo State have sealed a hotel and private mortuary allegedly owned by a suspected kidnapper after a weekend raid uncovered dozens of decomposed and mutilated corpses. This has raised suspicions of illegal organ harvesting operations. Imo police spokesperson Henry Okoye says that more than 100 corpses were discovered during the raid at the Umuhu Autonomous Community in Ngo Okpala district following intelligence on the suspect, who has now been declared wanted. Nigeria has been plagued by an escalating crime wave, with kidnapping gangs expanding into ritual killings and suspected organ trafficking rings. South Africa's African National Congress Party President Cyril Ramaphosa has urged members to save the party from disintegrating. Ramaphosa was speaking at the 5th ANC National General Council in Boksburg in the east of Johannesburg. The MGC is a mid-term platform to take stock of the implementation of resolutions adopted in the 2022 National Conference. Ramaphosa says they want to rid the party from factionalism before its 120-year celebrations.
Unless the ANC succeeds in renewing itself, we will perish. We must build better and activist branches. We must revive sectorial work. We must strengthen the alliance. We must reassert ANC values and principles and strengthen organizational integrity. As we proceed towards the 120th anniversary of the ANC, the Renewal Commission recommends specific areas for attention and focus. Firstly, to eradicate factionalism and patronage by intensifying efforts to build unity in our ranks.
South Africa's Department of Home Affairs says their office working hours have been extended beginning from yesterday until the 19th of this month. A second extension of the working hours will also take place next year from the 5th to the 16th of January. Those extended hours are aimed at helping citizens, non-citizens and visitors with document applications and collections. The extension applies to all Home Affairs branches nationwide. Tato Letshaba reports.
With holiday travel set to get underway from this weekend, the Department of Home Affairs says it will keep its offices open longer to ease the festive rush. For the next 2 weeks, branches will close at 6 p.m. instead of 4 p.m., with the same extended hours returning in January for another 2 weeks. December is South Africa's busiest travel season as thousands journey across provinces and borders to reunite with family or head to holiday destinations. Longer operating hours are aimed at allowing citizens to apply or collect passports, IDs, and other emergency documents needed for smooth travel. Bookings must be made in advance through the branch appointment booking system before visiting a branch.
And finally, the United Nations has launched its annual aid appeal, drastically limiting the amount it thinks it can raise. The UN's humanitarian chief, Tom Fletcher, said at a time when politicians were boasting about cutting aid, it had been necessary to make critical choices. Speaking at the UN headquarters in New York, Fletcher hit out at global apathy about aid. He pointed out that the UN appeal for aid is just 1% of what the world spends on arms.
What do we need in order to save 87 million lives next year? We need protection for our work, we need that energetic peacemaking, and we need $23 billion.
For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Jolani Tulo Wepe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And coming up in your sports news this hour, Mozambique, the latest nation to announce their AFCON squad, while Live Hope ranking solution by 2026. I'll tell you more at the bottom of the hour.
Your morning companion with the stories that matter. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa. From Africa's broadcast capital to the furthest corners of the globe, this is Rise and Shine. Every weekday mornings on Channel Africa.
5 minutes past 6 Central African time. You're listening to Channel Africa Radio, and the program is Rise and Shine. I'm Peter Ndoro. I've got to tell you, we have a lot lined up for you. I'm going to be going to Kenya because today is Independence Day in the country. Not Kenya, Tanzania. Independence Day in Tanzania, and protests have been planned by the people. Samia Suluhu Hassan says it's illegal, so a confrontation is likely to happen today.
Nigerian jets and troops have moved into Benin. This was yesterday, Monday, after a foiled coup. That's another story we'll be looking at. My name is Asanda. Beda. Thank you for joining us. A very good morning to you. At Channel Africa 1 is our handle across the various social media platforms. That's where we are live streaming to you as well this morning via YouTube. You can also connect with us on www.channelafrica.co.za, as well as the SABC Plus app for mobile phones. So our show is packed with news. As our colleague Peter just said, we are together for the next 3 hours, so stay tuned.
Es-tu préoccupé par quelque chose? Es-tu passionné par les questions qui comptent? As-tu une voix qui mérite d'être entendue? Eh bien, nous avons la plateforme parfaite pour toi. Téléphone-nous ou fais-nous un WhatsApp au +27 66 408 87 42 et nous te rappellerons. Sois dans la conversation.
Salut Channel Africa, ici Beno le diamant rouge et Binales Sport depuis le Cameroun, le pays des lions. Voilà.
sois dans la conversation. Il ne s'agit pas seulement de parler, mais c'est ta chance d'exprimer ton point de vue, de partager tes opinions et de t'engager avec une communauté qui valorise ton avis. Suivez-nous sur les réseaux sociaux, visitez notre site www.channelafrica.co.za et préparez-vous à partager vos points de vue sur Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
Wake up to the essence of the continent. Rise and shine on Channel Africa.
Right, every day after the 6 o'clock news, we bring you what we call the Africa Roundup. And essentially what it is we take a look at the top stories that played out and events in the last 24 hours. And we put them together for you in a concise manner so that you're kept up to date and you don't miss out on anything. And they also serve as a setup for the news day ahead. And we begin today's Africa Roundup in West Africa, where Nigerian jets and troops moved into Benin on Monday after a foiled coup, aiming to prevent a political crisis in the West African country. Analysts say that it's Nigeria's first foreign intervention in nearly a decade, driven by fears of instability and spilling across its borders. Benin's President Patrice Talon says that those involved in the coup attempt will face justice. Christy Kilburn has more.
Béninoise, Béninois, je voudrais ici.
I would like to commend the sense of duty of our army and its leaders, who have remained Republican and loyal to the homeland. With them, we stood firm, regained positions until we cleared the last pockets of resistance from the mutineers.
Repris les positions jusqu'à nettoyer les dernières poches de résistance des mutins.
This commitment and mobilization have enabled us to defeat these adventurers and avoid the worst for our country. This wrongdoing will not go unpunished.
We go to Somalia now, where the President, Hassan Sheikh Mohamud, delivered a sharp critique of the global justice system at the Doha Forum, pointing to Gaza as evidence of a collapse in international law and moral leadership. He called for UN reform, equal justice and accountability for powerful nations, warning that trust in global institutions is rapidly eroding across the global south.
The international or the global system of justice has been shown the weaknesses and the cracks it has already developed and working. The problem of the international law is that there is no watchman that you can call at any time that there is a violation. Proper implementation and enforcement is where we are losing. When the international crimes become intertwined with the interest of some other nations that are bigger in voice, bigger in power and in position, and they don't want to implement. International law is there to protect the weak at the global level.
The 7th UN Environment Assembly opened on Monday at the UN headquarters in Nairobi, with President Abdullahi bin Ali Al-Amri and the UNEP Executive Director Inga Anderson addressing the media. Now, the press conference set the stage for crucial global talks on climate change, pollution and biodiversity at a pivotal moment for the planet. UNEP Executive Director is Inga Anderson.
UNEA continues to play an absolutely critical role. This is the place where the broad environmental scope is discussed by member states. A few highlights just to mention to you. We will be launching the Global Environmental Outlook, GEO7, that will inform the week and inform hopefully the future pathway that we will take. Wednesday, which is Multilateral Environmental Agreement Day, there will be a focus on efficiencies, impact, effectiveness across the MEAs, and there'll be discussion around the synergies amongst and between these. And Thursday, we will have the high-level opening you would be well aware of. We'll hear from leaders from across the world. And Thursday and Friday, we will see these 3 leadership dialogues, one on health, one on circularity, and one on degradation. So it's a busy week.
Namibia's President Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah has highlighted that merging the country's trade function with international relations is a deliberate step to maximize economic diplomacy through foreign policy. Speaking at State House on Monday, she urged 7 newly commissioned heads of mission to prioritize investment promotion in their work, guided by existing policy frameworks.
Namibia, you have to remember, is part of the community of nations. We are proud Namibians, but we are also proud Africans. In this context, our neighbors, the SADC region, and the African continent at large remains key to Namibia's commitment in ensuring and promoting international peace and security. As you take up your responsibility, act with humanity, courage, and steadfastness. Be curious, be courageous, and be collaborative. Listen attentively, negotiate honestly, and always act in a manner that preserves Namibia's integrity.
And that's how we come to the end of today's edition of the Africa Roundup. Stay with us. We have so much more right here on Rise and Shine on Channel Africa Radio, where we bring you the African perspective.
Gender-based violence is destroying lives and tearing communities apart. It happens in homes, in schools, at workplaces, and too often in silence. But it doesn't have to continue. If you see it, speak out. If you are hurting, reach out. Because doing nothing is not an option. Listen to all 19 SABC radio stations from Wednesday, 23rd of July for hard talk, discussions, advice, dramas, educational shows, and interviews around GBV with experts, survivors, lawmakers, and the whole country affected by gender-based violence. For all your favorite SABC radio stations, call 0800 428 428 to report abuse or get help. GBV, it ends with you. This message is brought to you by the SABC. The voice of the continent, now online, with all your sports fixtures, lifestyle, and more. New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
Now, South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has issued a stark warning that his party, the African National Congress, the ANC, could face collapse if it fails to reform itself. Speaking at the party's 5th National General Council east of Johannesburg, he said that the ANC must urgently address internal divisions and eliminate factionalism as it approaches its 120th anniversary. The Midterm Council is a key gathering where the party assesses progress on decisions taken at its 2022 National Conference, including efforts to strengthen governance, improve service delivery, and rebuild public trust. Ntebo Mokgobo has more.
Unless the ANC succeeds in renewing itself, we will perish. We must build better and activist branches. We must revive sectorial work. We must strengthen the alliance. We must reassert ANC values and principles and strengthen organizational integrity. As we proceed towards the 120th anniversary of the ANC, the Renewal Commission recommends specific areas for attention and focus. Firstly, to eradicate factionalism and patronage by intensifying efforts to build unity in our ranks.
A clarion call from ANC President to renew or die. President Ramaphosa also decried the social distance between the ANC and the public, saying its election campaign was not appealing to voters.
Our door-to-door culture was not at its best. And as a result, on election day, that's why we saw so many people staying away from the polls. And in part, it was largely because they had never been touched by the ANC visiting their homes. We must therefore, as we approach the next local government elections, ensure that we go back to basics, being closely connected and rooted with our people.
Currently, the ANC is at its weakest after losing elections and garnering only 40% of the votes, with its historical alliance on shaky grounds after the SACP's decision to go it alone in future elections. President Ramaphosa urged delegates to reflect on the political ramifications that the Communist Party's decision will have on the national democratic revolution.
We must acknowledge that the decision by the South African Communist Party to contest elections separately threatens the unity and the cohesion of the alliance. The Secretary General will report on the discussions that have been held with the SACP on a bilateral basis with regard to the decision that their conference has taken. This NGC must discuss the full implications of this decision for our movement and for the alliance. We need to do so, particularly as we go towards next year's local government elections.
The ANC president also hit out at the AfriForum, accusing it of pushing false narratives of white genocide against Afrikaner farmers. This has partly influenced US President Donald Trump to impose huge tariffs in the country, boycotting the recently concluded G20 Leaders Summit, and even not inviting South Africa to the next summit in the United States.
The vehement opposition by some groups to our policies of transformation conveniently align with wider notions of white supremacy and white victimhood, fed by false claims of the persecution of white Afrikaners in our country. The propaganda of these false claims has real implications for our sovereignty, international relations, and national security. It is essential that we counter this narrative and defeat this agenda through direct and frank engagement, mobilizing broad support for the South African vision of non-racialism, reconciliation, and transformation.
The NGC continues on Tuesday with delegates breaking into commissions. They will discuss the state of the national democratic revolution, their balance of forces, and what is to be done. I am Tebo Mokobo Boxbeck in Ekurhuleni.
We zoom into the East African region and look at some stories making headlines there, and we'll be joined later on by our analyst who joins us on Tuesdays on that one.
Você é fluente em português? É apaixonado por rádio e quer trabalhar na África do Sul? Você tem documentos que o qualificam para trabalhar na África do Sul? Nesse caso, podemos ter uma oportunidade para você trabalhar no Canal África. Envie seu currículo e demonstração para Canal África at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Lembre-se, se você não receber alguma resposta nossa em 14 dias, isso significa que você não foi selecionado. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 Central African Time on Channel Africa.
Cameroon is once again facing renewed scrutiny following fresh reports of violence and deepening tensions in its Anglophone regions. The office of the Vice President of the self-declared Federal Republic of Ambazonia has accused Cameroon's military of killing 5 civilians in Bafut in Mezem County, describing the incident as part of what it calls a systematic campaign of state-sponsored repression. This comes just days before Ambazonian prisoners across several detention centres from Bamenda to Buena to Kondengui and even as far as Oslo in the United States begin a coordinated 3-day hunger strike to protest their continued detention. This despite international rulings ordering some of them to be released. All of this unfolds against the backdrop of Cameroon's recent elections, which have left many observers asking whether the President, Paul Biya, now more than 4 decades in power, has further cemented his authority, and whether any meaningful political challenge remains inside the country or even in the diaspora. Well, to help us understand the latest developments, I spoke to Dabney Yerima, the Vice President of the Republic of Ambazonia, and I began by asking him about the recent killings.
Well, the incident in Bafut took place in a small breakfast shop, and these people were there just to buy breakfast, and the owner was preparing omelette for his clients. Then the military came there, massacred them in cold blood, took their wallets, removed all the money they had, and they disappeared. This kind of acts, heinous acts, are rampant in our territory today because the military of French Cameroon, invading military, has been given the rights to do whatever on our people because the main objective of the BR regime is to assimilate us, loot our resources, and, with the help of France, change us for who we are. But as a people, we have refused that our culture, our traditions, our lifestyle are not for sale.
Mr.
And
Yerima?
they thought within 3 months.
Mr. Yerima, I'm going to jump in a little bit because of time.
Yes,
can you be certain that these were Cameroon national military and not bandits, perhaps dressed up?
It was the Cameroon military. And there is also those that they call the Atanganji boys, sponsored by the Minister of Territorial Administration, Paul Atanganji, who commit crimes against humanity in our territory, and they always want to blame it on our liberation volunteers. A few days back in Bafut, the same place where this happened, there was a birthday party going on, and during that birthday, they invaded the place, and 9 other innocent civilians were massacred. So this is very rampant in our territory. The military can at any time decide to abduct young men and women, take them to their stations, and then they'll be asking their family members to come and bill them with large sums of money. And if your family cannot afford, then you either disappear or you rot in jail for no reason. Just, being there, doing your normal activity, striving to help your family, and they will just come and abduct a lot of people. They call it in French, calé. So that is what is rampant in our territory today.
How do the authorities justify this? What do they say they are doing? And they have to have an explanation, or do they answer to no one?
They answer to no one. They can do anything. French Cameroon is a kangaroo republic. Who is even leading that country today? We don't know who is leading that country. The elections took place, and it's a couple of weeks since Paul Biya rigged the election again. They cannot even come up with a cabinet. That is how bad that country is. So the military on their part, and now that the country is also having some financial difficulties, even to pay salaries to civil servants, the military on their part, they use it as business now. So that is why they commit all of these crimes against humanity, just to extort, resources from our people, make our people poorer. So they think they can make us poorer, and we will not be able to fight back as we've been fighting for the past 8 years. But that will not break our will. We are united, determined to fight, to eradicate this invading military in our country. And nobody is held accountable. You know of the incidents of Garbu, where children were massacred, pregnant women killed, the incidents of Kwakwa, that villages were razed down, elderly people burned in their houses alive. Nobody has taken responsibility. What they try to do is to cover up these heinous crimes against humanity. But thank God, there are human rights organizations who have come outrightly to blame the actions of the military in our territory.
Your communique calls on Ambazonian prisoners to go on a 3-day hunger strike. Why have they chosen this moment, and what are the key demands?
Well, that communique is to support the call by our prisoners of conscience across the prisons in Ambazonia, in the prisons in French Cameroon, and in the prisons in the diaspora. They are in these prisons because they are fighting for the self-determination of Amazonia. And they made that call because during that period, it is the International Human Rights Day. So they are having this hunger strike to mark the International Human Rights Day. So my call was to, my communique was to amplify that call. So the demands are that they must release all political prisoners and heed to the Human Rights Council Working Group and the Abuja High Court ruling, which demanded that the government of French Cameroon should release all political prisoners immediately. But the world knows now that the government of French Cameroon do not heed or does not heed to international or respect international norms or heed to calls of that nature. That is why they are still in jail. We are hoping that the appeal that we made in the Supreme Court in Abuja, I think will also come up with a positive ruling from the Nigeria side. And so their demands are that you should release all political prisoners, organize dialogue without preconditions between French Cameroon and Amazonia in a neutral ground and with organized by muscular nations that can implement the agreements of such a dialogue. And also calling on the international community to send a fact-finding mission to Amazonia so that they can record firsthand the crimes against humanity that are committed in Amazonia by the invading military of French Cameroon.
That was Dabney Yerma, the Vice President of the self-proclaimed Federal Republic of Ambazonia, speaking to me about recent killings by Cameroon military on its English-speaking people. It's 6:30 Central African Time, which means it's time for your news headlines. Here's Jwalani Tulongwebe.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning. Making headlines, the authorities in Tanzania have urged citizens to stay away from today's planned anti-government protests over the disputed October elections. South Africa's National Police Commissioner Fani Masemola has confirmed that the police have found one of the two vehicles believed to have been used in the assassination of Marius van der Merwe, who testified as witness D before the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. And finally, U.S. Secretary General Antonio Guterres has condemned the unauthorized entry of Israeli authorities into the premises of the UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees at Sheikh Jarrah in occupied East Jerusalem. I will have details on these and other stories at 7 o'clock.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Time now to catch up with what's happening in the world of sports. We say good morning to Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you so much, Asanda. Very good morning from the sports desk. I will start with football news. Mozambique head coach Coutinho Conde has announced his final list of 25 players selected for the Total Energies CAF Africa Cup of Nations tournament in Morocco, unveiling a balanced squad that combines tournament experience with exciting new talent. The Mambas, making their sixth appearance at the Africa Cup of Nations tournament, will look now to progress beyond the group stages for the very first time in their history. Conde has retained retained the core of the team that featured at the last edition in Cote d'Ivoire last year, with the 16 players returning to the squad for yet another continental campaign. They are joined by 9 newcomers who will experience the Total Energies AFCON for the very first time. Among those are returning are goalkeepers Erani as well as Ivan Urabal, along with seasoned defenders in Mexa, Ronaldo, Bruno Langa, Ifran Matola, Edmilson Dove, as well as Nene. Mozambique, by the way, will open their campaign on the 24th of December, a day before Christmas, against the defending champions Cote d'Ivoire, aiming to make a strong start in what promises to be a highly competitive tournament in Morocco. Well, Helman Mkelele, the assistant coach of the South African men's national football team Bafana Bafana, has slammed FIFA's decision to allow clubs to hold on to their players until just 6 days before the AFCON tournament gets underway. The ruling breaks from the long-standing policy of releasing players 14 days before major tournaments, with the competition set to start on the 21st of December in Morocco and concluding on the 18th of January. Mkelele says the late release will severely affect preparations for South Africa and other nations.
I would say it's totally unfair and also unacceptable, because when you look at it, you're starting to make, like assumptions, saying that, FIFA, it really doesn't take African football too serious as they do with the Europeans, So you're starting to feel that you are more or less important than the other nations or the other leagues, But I believe that CAF will also needs to make their point to FIFA,
Now, with most teams having planned to play international friendly matches at least from the 12th of December, this decision could go a long way toward affecting those plans. Mkalele elaborates.
It's good on the one hand, it brings more disadvantage to us, because especially in this new FIFA format where you have 48 teams and playing in different altitudes. So it really becomes difficult for African teams to plan.
On to netball news now. South Africa's national netball team, the Spar Proteas, began their title defence with a 104-25 win against Tanzania on the first day of the Africa Netball Cup in Lilongwe, Malawi on Monday. So Jenny van Dijk's charges started like a house on fire as they had the first centre pass. Almare van der Berg, who earned her 50th cap for the Spar Proteas, was ruthless under the pole and punished Tanzanian defenders every chance she got. Meanwhile, earlier on in the day, the South African male team took on neighbours Botswana in their opening match of the tournament, where they won 59-38. So the South African male team will take on Zimbabwe at 2 p.m. Central African time today, while the Small Proteas will face off with Malawi at 6 p.m. Central African time. And finally, golf news. Live Golf Chief Executive Officer Scott O'Neill is optimistic that Tour will secure official world golf ranking points for players in 2026. Now, the Breakaway Tour, which was launched back in 2022, has been locked out of the OWGR because of its 54-hole no-cut closed field model, but they now believe gaining ranking points would be transformative. It would automatically now enable more Live players to qualify for majors and then remove one of the biggest remaining barriers between the league as well as the established golf ecosystem. O'Neill has described the ongoing talks with OWGR as encouraging. The headline change, which is now set to help facilitate the rankings shift, is the move from 54 to more traditional 72-hole tournaments. So whether this concession or a calculated step toward legitimacy on its own terms remains to be seen, but O'Neill says that decision is also driven by commercial reality. It's 6:36 a.m. Central African time and concludes your first sporting update this morning on Africa Rise and Shine. For any sports story you'd like to share with us, send us an email. That's to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Remember as well to give us a call. The newsroom line is +27 11714 4459. I'm back with more sports news in the next hour. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
6:37 Central African Time. Today in history, Tanzania's Independence Day today, December the 9th. Tanganyika, now part of modern-day Tanzania, achieved independence from Britain on this day in 1961. Julius Nyerere became the country's first prime minister, marking a turning point in East Africa's post-colonial journey. Tanzania has continued to commemorate the 9th of December as Independence Day. And fast forward to 2025, and today the people of Tanzania said that they are going to protest against Samia Suluhu Hassan's 98% victory at the polls. The election violence saw thousands of people get killed. There are fears that clashes between authorities and citizens could end in loss of life. We'll be taking a look at that story and others throughout the course of the show this morning.
Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
The United States was very vocal at the beginning of South Africa's G20 presidency, and this is largely due to strained relations with South Africa at the time, that they were not really keen on participating. Where do they stand right now?
The US is planning to take over the presidency of the G20 next year, and our understanding from them is that they intend to continue to do so, and therefore it is quite difficult then to be in a situation where you are not attending deputies' meetings or discussions during our presidency and then to take over the presidency next year. From a finance track perspective, there has been engagement. We've been working on a communique last week and this week here in Zimbabwe. What's important about that is that it's a consensus document. And so all the members in the room have to agree to the language that is used there. And our US colleagues have been part of those discussions and negotiations.
Bringing the African markets into your home. Channel Africa, the African Perspective. Hi there. Do you want to elevate your business and give it a voice in South Africa and Africa as a whole? Well, in that case, let Channel Africa make this a possibility. Channel Africa is willing to advertise your business for as little as 30,000 rands or $1,719.18. To get access to these great rates, send all requests to mokoenata@SABC. That's MOKOENATA@SABC. Channel Africa, the African Perspective.
You're listening to Rise and Shine with Asanda, Beda and Peter Ndoro. But right now it's time to find out what's happening in the world of business. And at the desk this morning, we say good morning, Matapelo Mahabe.
Business News on Channel Africa, the African Perspective.
And good morning. South African Power Utility Eskom says South Africa is working on ways to support its ferrochrome industry. This as the utility announced an agreement with the Suncor Chrome and the Glencore Merafe Chrome venture yesterday. Eskom says the memorandum of understanding with the two companies followed constructive engagements on Friday with the country's Minister of Electricity and Energy and Trade Unions. Suncor Chrome and the joint venture between Glencore and Merafe Resources had said they are considering job cuts because of pressures, including the cost of electricity. Eskom says energy regulator NERSA is currently reviewing an interim power tariff adjustment for the two firms, and the government is working on a longer-term mechanism to support competitive pricing for the ferrochrome sector. South Africa holds approximately 80% of the world's known chrome ore reserves, positioning the country as a key player in the global ferrochrome production. And the South African Trade Union Federation, COSATU, wants the Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies, Solly Malatsi, to intervene in the ongoing business rescue process of the Post Bank and Post Office. The Labour Federation's Parliamentary Coordinator, Matthew Parks, made a submission on the medium-term budget policy statement to Parliament's Standing Committee on Appropriations. This is in part of the committee's ongoing public hearings on the MTBPS. The Post Office has been under business pressure, or rather business rescue since 2023. Parks says to ensure that the matter is concluded swiftly, Malati needs to intervene.
We have not seen progress under the business rescue practitioners. What we've seen is retrenchment of thousands of workers, the closure of many branches. We fear that's going to actually ultimately further weaken the capacity of the post office, not assist it. So we do hope the new minister, Honorable Malati, will be able to try to move things forward, because what we've not seen in the past years is any movement forward. But also means that Treasury also needs to honor its capital injection commitments as well.
And South African Finance Minister Ndoro says the key message being taken to Davos, Switzerland for the World Economic Forum in January, and that South Africa is ripe for investment and ready to do business. Speaking to the media at the pre-WF business breakfast, Ndoro says trade negotiations with the United States are ongoing, adding that government is also in the process of appointing a South African ambassador to the US. The minister says South Africa will resume its G20 participation in 2027 following the country's exclusion from a US G20 presidency next year.
We're involved in intense negotiations on trade negotiations, and those trade negotiations, by the way, are going very well. There may be what is attracting people a turf with the USA on what they call genocide. As a result, they are not accrediting us for G20, but it does not mean a necessary fallout with the USA. It's up to the member state to decide what to do. As far as we're concerned, if we are excluded by the USA in 2026, 2027 G20 presidents go to the United Kingdom and will resume our seat in 2027.
Sudan's paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, RSF, says it has taken control of Sudan's largest and most strategic Heglig oil field in the South Kordofan province. Heglig, which lies along Sudan's southern border, houses the main processing facility of South Sudan's oil, which makes up much of the revenue for South Sudan's government. Government forces and workers at the Heglig oil field withdrew from the area on Sunday to avoid clashes that could have damaged the oil facility. Oil is transported through the Greater Nile pipeline system on Port Sudan under the Red Sea for export, making the Heglig site vital for Sudan's hard currency earnings and for South Sudan, which is landlocked and relies mostly on pipelines through Sudan. The war that erupted in April of 2023 between the Sudanese army and the RSF has repeatedly disrupted South Sudan's oil flows, which before the conflict averaged between 100,000 and 150,000 barrels per day for export via Sudan. And Iran's currency slipped to the lowest level in its history on Monday, nearing a 1.25 million rial to the US dollar on the open rate market. The Iranian rial stood around 55,000 to the US dollar in 2018 when US sanctions were reimposed by first Trump administration to force Tehran to the negotiation table by limiting its oil exports and access to foreign currency. Iranian media blamed the government's recent economic liberalization policies for adding pressure on the open rate market. The open rate market is where ordinary Iranians buy foreign currency, whereas business typically uses state-regulated rates. A look at your financial indicators. $1 US in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 449. In Botswana, it's 13 pula 15. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 55, and in Zambia, it's 23 kwacha 10. The BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 real 43. Russia at 76 rubles 39. India, it's 90 rupees 8. China at 71 6, and in South Africa, $1 is trading at 16 rand 97 cents. $1 is trading at 74 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. A look at your commodities. Gold is trading at $4,193 and platinum at $1,648 per ounce, while the price of Brent crude oil is at $62.37 a barrel. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business News, I am Matabela Mahabe.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. The sound of Africa is evolving. Experience our new mobile app. Free to download, free to connect.
Technology has become a powerful tool in activism for women and children's rights, helping to raise awareness and educate communities about violence and societal problems faced by most vulnerable groups. Through online campaigns on various digital platforms, activists have been able to communicate and mobilize effectively. However, in their courageous act of speaking out, the very technology they rely on to spread their message is also used to silence, intimidate and target them and those that are advocating for a technological phenomenon called digital violence. Shabalala Sikwena compiled this report.
When you're an activist, you find that you get bullied as well. You get intimidated as well. So you will get messages of intimidation and, messages of why are you fighting for this cause? We're going to get you.
This is Dieketseng Diale of the Lady of Peace Community Foundation, a community-based organization that advocates for peace and the rights of vulnerable groups such as women and children. She says they embrace the use of new media technology during the COVID-19 pandemic to educate people and engage in constructive conversations about various social ills. However, Diale says they realize the same technology they use to raise awareness is also used by bullies to perpetrate hate and fear.
We learned that some of the users of the technology, they actually misuse it. And therefore, it leaves a bitter taste in the mouth. Whilst it's a good, instrument to have, to use for advocacy, to use for teaching, to use for so many other social, capacity building initiatives and just communication, it also has got bad side effects.
Member of the Lady of Peace Community Foundation, Dimakatso Hassan, says harassment often occurs when they remove children from homes where they are sexually abused or trafficked.
They use a phone with these free SIM cards. They get 3 to 4 SIM cards. They will call you, changing numbers, swearing and insulting, telling you that they are going to kill you. They know what you are wearing, and this is because they are watching you at that time, and you are not even aware. You are just answering the phone the way you always do. When you try to report those numbers to the police, they are no longer reachable.
Information technology expert at the Northwest University, Andy Somsi, says the use of technology to cause harm violates one's safety.
When we refer to digital violence, we refer to harm inflicted through technology. It can be either in mobile phones, social media, messaging platforms, but also mostly on the online spaces. And it violates one's safety, privacy, dignity, and autonomy.
Msi says one element that enables digital harassment is false and hidden identity.
Because this is happening online. So people are able to have fake, your fake Facebook page. They're able to stalk people. They're able to go and buy new SIM cards and continue harming people online.
New media technology allows us to connect with people and access new opportunities. However, IT specialists say there is a need for digital literacy to help users practice caution when using these technologies and know the proper reporting channels and protective digital policies in case of danger. I'm Tsolofelo Sukwena in Mahikeng.
Still coming up, it's Tuesday on Rise and Shine, so we get into our gender-based violence feature. Of course, tomorrow being the final day that we are observing the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence and femicide.
Channel Africa is evolving, and so are you. Stay connected wherever you are with our brand new website and mobile app. Stream your favorite shows, catch up on African news, culture, and conversations, all at your fingertips.
Africa is just a tap away.
Your world, your stories, now on the go.
Stay connected wherever you are.
Visit channelafrica.co.za or download the Channel Africa app today. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 Central African Time on Channel Africa.
South Africa's Qualifications Authority is stepping up efforts to strengthen the integrity of academic and skills credentials across the continent. This week, SACA is hosting a delegation from Angola's National Institute for Educational Assessment and Development for a 4-day benchmarking and capacity building program in Pretoria. The initiative aims to boost regional cooperation, improve the recognition of foreign qualifications, and tackle growing concerns around document fraud and misrepresentation. To discuss what this partnership means for both countries and for the wider African education landscape, we're joined by SACA's Chief Operating Officer, that's the South Africa's Qualifications Authority Chief Operating Officer, Dr. Makapa Makafula. Dr. Makafula, thank you for joining us. Good morning.
Good morning, Asanda, to you and your viewers, and we really appreciate this opportunity to share with the great audience of South Africa and beyond.
It's our pleasure. Let's start here. What is the main purpose of this 4-day engagement between SACA and Angola's INADE?
One of our main objectives to start, for the next 5 years, as a current executive, decided that it's going to be Africa first. And because we are the first generation of the national qualification framework in the world, we are the benchmark. We felt that it's important that we really capacitate the continent and really, make sure that we are at the same level in terms of issues around misrepresentation and qualification verification. So what we do, we tend to run in this what you call training capacity workshops, targeting especially around qualification verification, and to really try and take the continent with us. And this is part and parcel of our current CEO, Ms. Nadia Starr. She is a tracker president of what we call Africa Continental Qualification Framework. So as part of that is to ensure that, the continent is with us, because most of the time when we benchmark, when we capacitate, we tend to look outside for people to capacitate us. But yes, as we are the benchmark, and even people outside Europe and other countries, they didn't come to us to learn. So for us, it's more about
why was
taking
Angola
the continent with us.
identified as a key partner in this kind of capacity building and benchmarking exercise?
We do various countries. We hosted Zambia as well. So this is more around countries within SADC that we're trying to help, because we have what we call SADC qualification framework. So it's mainly trying to make sure that all countries within the region, they are all on the same par. And apart from, they are partnered. We hosted Zambia, we're hosting Angola, and we hosted various countries within from East and West Africa as well.
You touch on trusted quality systems across the continent and the strengthening of these systems. Practically, how does this collaboration help ordinary learners and professionals in both Angola and South Africa?
We are part of the Addis Convention and the Global Convention, and around these issues around mobility for students to be allowed to move between two countries. But for you to do that, you have to make sure that we have a sound quality assurance systems that, as you know, that we have issues around fraudulent qualifications all over the world. It's a global phenomenon, is a global something that we are facing globally. And we feel that in order for us to manage this kind of system, we have to make sure that we work together to really tighten our quality assurance system around verifications, so that we want to share with our colleagues how do we do a verification, which is ours is just more stringent and very strict. As you look at from institutional accreditation to whether the certificate belongs to you as an Asanda certificate, that institutions exist as well. So for us, it's to ensure that the system is very credible, and whoever comes into the country or leaves the country, we can be able to verify and say they are indeed from that particular country. And same thing in Angolans. If they want to come to South Africa, we have to ensure that whatever the qualification they claim they have is something that is on their system, and you can be able to verify it.
on qualification fraud, what trends are you seeing as SACA? We know that this is becoming a serious regional concern. And how is this partnership helping to address these risks around qualification fraud?
In terms of what we see as one of the biggest challenges, of you don't see it anymore because now we have the Act of Parliament that really supporting SAPA issues around misrepresentation. So if you found to make a fraudulent qualification in South Africa, you can serve up to minimum 5 years in jail. And you have seen some of the cases where people lost their jobs, and some of them they are behind bars. So for us, I mean, how do you minimize this risk? Is to really understand the Angolan education system and what does it cost someone to obtain that particular qualification, and we'll be able to really understand and have them not only that to really to strengthen the what you call qualification verification system. So by working together to really identify those challenges, we can be able to win on this particular one. But one thing you're asking us the question that how prevalent these issues around fraudulent qualification. I mean, from our side, we realize that I think that has been minimized since we get I mean, when we discuss, I mean, we're on media discussing some of the issues around fraud and misrepresentation. I think people tend, and if there's a media and there's a policy around it, and people are seen to be, saving some time in jail. I mean, this, tends for people to really use, their attempt to be able to come into our country with fraudulent qualification. So, I mean, to us, if we work together as a collective, it's the only way that you can minimize. If they understand our system, we understand their system, then it's easy for us to verify whoever is coming from their country or coming to our country. And one thing that we do as well, because we are part of, around the political dispensation, we tend to sign issues around the MOUs so that, the ease of access, the ease of exchange of information become easy. They don't have to wait to go through any other channel.
Right. So we understand that a memorandum of understanding may be signed between SACA and INADE. What will this help between the two bodies going forward?
I think the MOU will bring a clear relationship in terms of, the focus areas that we need to work around. And the second, in terms of access, as you know, that issues around misrepresentation, qualification verification rely on data. And one of the things that we saw as a challenge as well is issues around the language, because as you know that they speak Portuguese. So, I mean, those things help us in terms of understanding each other and even interpretation around certain terminology. So the MOU is more around capacitating both staff from SACA and from India, because we need to work together to really, and even allow, cross ease of movement between the two countries, where they can host our team down there in terms of capacitating and even working together in joint projects like what I just shared with you around the Africa Continental Qualification Framework. As you know, that SADC has the strongest of the framework. So I think most countries within the continent can learn, and we can be able to form a formidable partnership. And that will help in really making sure that the continent, in terms of its qualification, is very credible.
Dr. Makafula, thanks again for your time. We'll leave it there for today.
Thank you very much, Asanda, and good morning to you, and goodbye.
Thank you. Dr. Makafula is Chief Operating Officer at the South African Qualifications Authority, or SACA, speaking to us about their partnership with Angola's INADE and the broader push to strengthen the integrity of qualifications across the continent. 7 o'clock Central African time it is. This is Channel Africa. The show is Rise and Shine. I'm Asanda Beda with Peter Ndoro. Let's start with our news. Here's Jwalani Tulo Mwepe, and then following her is Musibudi Makura with sports headlines.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. The authorities in Tanzania have urged citizens to stay away from today's planned anti-government protests over the disputed October elections. The Prime Minister Mwigulu Nchemba has asked people to mark Independence Day at home, except for essential workers. There's a heavy deployment of police and army personnel in Dar es Salaam and some other major cities. Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi says Rwanda is already violating its commitments under a peace deal mediated by Washington. This is despite President Tshisekedi and Rwanda's Paul Kagame having reaffirmed their commitments to a US-brokered deal reached in June to stabilize the vast country and open the way for more Western mining investment. Both Kagame and Tshisekedi maintain they will honor the deal. South Africa's National Police Commissioner Fani Masemola has confirmed that the police have found one of the two vehicles believed to have been used in the assassination of Marius van der Merwe, who testified as witness D before the Malanga Commission of Inquiry. Masemola revealed that the bakkie was found abandoned in Alexandra Township and police are still searching for the other car. He's added that the crime scene experts are inspecting the bakkie. 3 persons of interest have been identified and 1 has been questioned. President Cyril Ramaphosa established the commission to look into matters of criminality, political interference and corruption in the criminal justice system. Masemola briefed the media in Brakpan in the east of Johannesburg.
There was an attempted murder on Marius van der Merwe in September 2025 in which he indicated that there were 2 wild males that were following him with a bakkie. We are still looking for the murder weapon that was used for this current case now. We currently cannot indicate as to what is the motive.
South Africa's African National Congress Party President Cyril Ramaphosa has urged members to save the party from disintegrating. Ramaphosa was speaking at the 5th ANC National General Council underway in Boksburg in the east of Johannesburg. The MGC is a midterm platform to take stock of the implementation of resolutions adopted in the 2022 National Conference. Ramaphosa says they want to rid the party from factionalism before its 120-year celebrations.
Unless the ANC succeeds in renewing itself, we will perish. We must build better and activist branches. We must revive sectorial work. We must strengthen the alliance. We must reassert ANC values and principles and strengthen organizational integrity. As we proceed towards the 120th anniversary of the ANC, the Renewal Commission recommends specific areas for attention and focus. Firstly, to eradicate factionalism and patronage by intensifying efforts to build unity in our ranks.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has condemned the unauthorized entry of Israeli authorities into the premises of the UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian refugees at Sheikh Jarrah in occupied East Jerusalem. In a statement, Guterres says the compound remained United Nations premises and was immune from any form of interference. The building has not been in use since earlier this year after Israel ordered the agency to halt all operations inside Israel. Sherwin Bryce Pease reports.
Israel had barred UNRWA from operating on its territory after accusing some employees of participating in the October 7th Hamas-led attacks, which had been broadly repudiated by the UN. The International Court of Justice further found in October that those claims by Israel were unsubstantiated and that Israel was obliged to support UN relief efforts in Gaza, including through UNRWA. Guterres affirmed the ICJ advisory opinion and urged Israel to immediately take all necessary steps to restore the inviolability of UNRWA's premises and refrain from taking any further action in line with its obligations under the UN Charter and its obligations under international law.
For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Cholani Tulo Mwepe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And coming up in your sports news this hour, Bafana Bafana assistant coach slams FIFA's decision to hold on to players just before the Africa Cup of Nations tournament, while South Africa cruise past Tanzania at the Africa Netball Cup. Details of these and other stories coming up at 7:30.
Start your day informed, inspired, and entertained. Asanda and Peter bring you Rise and Shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Wherever the hour finds you. across the world. He's your morning African lens on the world's leading story. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Coming up on the show, we look at the Human Rights Watch, well, in this hour of Rise and Shine, saying Tanzanian authorities have wrongfully arrested alleged protest organizers and opposition supporters ahead of nationwide protests they called for today, the 9th of December. As you know, we we didn't have that chat because we were supposed to have that earlier on our East Africa wrap. My name is Asanda Beda. If you've just joined us, good morning and welcome to Rise and Shine.
Yes, indeed, and still to come. In fact, coming up shortly, we go to Nigeria, where 100 schoolgirls have been rescued, and this is recorded as one of the largest rescues that we've seen post-kidnappings. Some good news, but still, sadly, some trauma in terms of the fact that this kidnapping issue is still an issue. And we cross to our correspondent, Jonathan Lamgon, to give us an update.
Annie Kalonji sur Channel Africa.
Comment est-ce que les militants et sympathisants du parti Les Transformateurs ont-ils réagi face à la condamnation de Succès Masra?
La condamnation de Succès Masra ne nous a pas surpris et les militants transformateurs ont été bouleversés et indignés étant donné que le verdict est un verdict lourd, illégal, injuste et donc face à la répression dans laquelle le peuple tchadien est confronté, les militants transformateurs se sont résignés de ne pouvoir pas sortir manifester. Et donc, c'est une situation totalement absurde pour un pays. Et aujourd'hui, nous célébrons le 11 août, fête de l'indépendance. On pensait que le verdict allait être plus ou moins clément, mais le verdict est sévère.
Annie Kalonji, tous les dimanches sur Mix Vibration.
Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet. Channel 802.
We go to West Africa now, where Nigeria's government has rescued 100 school children abducted last month from St. Mary's Catholic School in Niger State, in one of the country's largest mass kidnappings in recent years. The children were handed over to the state governor in Minna. The president, Bola Tinubu, welcomed the rescue, calling on security forces to ensure all abducted Nigerians are brought home safely. It remains unclear how the children were freed, whether through negotiations, ransom payments, or security operations. Many parents are still anxious, though, for news about their children. We speak now to Channel Africa as Nigeria correspondent Jonathan James Diamgon for the latest. Jonathan, great to talk to you. Some good news, at least, for 100 parents.
Good morning, Peter. Yes, indeed, good news it is for those parents whose children or wards have been able to join them, to be reunited with them after what must have been a harrowing 2 weeks where they've been not able to tell where they are, what situation they're dealing with, even if they have been fed, if they've been able to sleep, or whatever the case is. Certainly, one situation that no parent ever wishes to be found in.
So, a mystery still surrounds how they were freed, right?
Yes, you captured that most aptly. Actually, a governor of Nasarawa State, which is a state neighboring the Federal Capital Territory, spoke, and which was quite unusual as against the governor of the state in particular, though the governor of the state did speak, but he didn't speak to the circumstance. But this governor, Governor Sule of Nasarawa State, who spoke, mentioned the fact that it was due to security reasons, he was not able to divulge the circumstance surrounding how they were rescued. But what we do know is that the Nigeria State Security Services Department, which we call the DSS, played a key role, and it has been said that they were assisted as well by Nigeria's military. But what we have seen is the Office of the National Security Advisor take front seat in terms of driving this operation. And that's about the much we know as to the circumstances surrounding the rescue, Peter.
What's the most likely scenario? Because I'm thinking a military operation, they would be telling us how many of the abductors were taken out in the process. And chances are, for no casualties, there must have been talking or payments made.
Well, they haven't provided any details as to this situation. What we do know, however, is that it does not seem to have been a military operation, because there wasn't any reported case of duel between the agents of government and the abductors. And it just makes sense that at this stage there wouldn't be that, because remember that an estimated number of about 250 were still said to be in captivity, and only 100 are said to have been returned. So leaving about 150 or 100, though we're not sure the exact numbers. But we've got then, in addition to about 12 teachers who were also abducted. So it just makes sense that there would have only been conversations which many believe would have involved the payment of ransom, which government will certainly not want to own up to.
So reports suggest that more than 300 people were initially abducted, including some teachers in that number. Do we know how many are still unaccounted for?
From the much that we've heard so far, government has shied away from from an exactitude of this number. But from putting together from what we've heard from the spokesperson of the bishop of that Catholic diocese, remember it's a Catholic school that these children were abducted from. From what we have, it's estimated no fewer than about 100 of the students are still said to be in captivity, and then also about 12 of the teachers. That is the number we're working with at the moment.
And I guess for the parents whose children have not come home, they must still be living through a nightmare.
Certainly. From images we've seen, so yesterday, the situation was pretty traumatic, even for me as a correspondent who has seen similar situations. I have been like a couple of years ago, I was in an event where parents of a related type of situation were gathered to pray and wail and cry when their children were taken. Yesterday, we didn't see the parents because these children were brought in by agents of the federal government in about 5 or so buses, and they were brought to the state capital. Now, you may know that the state capital is some about 300 kilometers away from where this situation happened in that particular state. So, and these are largely indigent parents who are not able to afford to come that way. And the state government has also tried to keep things under command and control. Peter?
The security forces, I guess this has become a major priority given the number of kidnappings that have taken place, and with such a large number of people rescued, does it signal maybe any shift in government strategy in dealing with kidnappings, or it may be just a different outcome this time?
Quite frankly, from the utterances of government, the only, I'd say, most practical thing that we have seen that shows a shift in government's position has been the declaration of a state of emergency on insecurity by Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu. Besides that, we have seen them work more in reaction to United States President's pronouncement as regards the designation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern. But as to the organization of the security architecture on ground, we haven't seen more troops deployment. We haven't seen the mobilization of more police, even though we have had the federal government announce a recall of police people who have been assigned to VIP protection, thereby bolstering the number of police in active police duty by about an estimated 100,000 policemen, and then the directive to recruit an additional 30,000 initially, and then a further 20,000 policemen into the force. But on ground, in terms of having structure on ground, in terms of seeing physical activities, not so much can be said to have changed in the last couple of weeks.
Jonathan, that's where we'll leave it. As always, thank you so much indeed for your updates.
My pleasure. Do have a nice day.
That's our correspondent in Nigeria, Jonathan James Liam-Gon, giving us an update on this rescue of 100 school children. And this is from about 300 that were taken a couple of weeks ago. So at least 200 are unaccounted for. Remember, I think there was about 80 that managed to run away and escape quite soon after. So we're not 100% certain how many are still in captivity, and there were teachers involved in that as well. We'll keep on top of that story for you. And just to let you know, we're also trying to track for you Independence Day in Tanzania. It should be celebrations, but today probably is going to be tense, and confrontations are expected between citizens and the authorities as planned demonstrations across the country against Samia Suluhu Hassan's election victory, inverted commas. We'll have more for you during the course of the program.
Got something to say? Are you passionate about issues that matter? Do you have a voice that deserves to be heard? Well, we've got the perfect platform for you. Call in or drop us a WhatsApp on +27 63 406 9126, and we will call you back so you could have your say and be part of the conversation.
30 years of age. I just turned 30 on the 15th of November. So yeah, that's who I am, you know.
It's not just talk. It's your chance to air your views. Share your opinion. Engage with the community that values your perspective. Follow us on our social media. Visit our website at www.channelafrica.co.za and get ready to share your views on Channel Africa, the African perspective. Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine, weekdays 6 till 9 Central African Time on Channel Africa.
Human Rights Watch says Tanzanian authorities have wrongfully arrested alleged protest organizers and opposition supporters ahead of nationwide protests called for today. The organization says the government should end its crackdown and immediately release all those arbitrarily detained. Activists have urged people to demonstrate peacefully on Tanzania's Independence Day, known as D9, against the police use of lethal force around the October 29 general elections. The government cancelled the official Independence Day celebrations after President Samia Suluhu Hassan directed that funds for the celebration be used to restore infrastructure damaged during the election unrest. To discuss this further, we joined on the line by Oriem Nyeko, who is Senior Africa Researcher at Human Rights Watch. Oriem, thank you for joining us. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. Tell us more about these reported arrests of protest organizers and opposition supporters.
So the context is that today in Tanzania, there's been protests that have been called for the past couple of weeks. And the purpose of the protest is really to draw attention to the violence that was perpetrated by the security forces during the elections. But in the lead up to that, people online in Tanzania and abroad have been calling people to go out on the streets to demonstrate, and the authorities haven't been happy with this. They've been arresting these people who've been posting online, as well as other people who they simply suspect as being part of the group that's organizing the protests. And this is hugely concerning because going out onto the streets to peacefully protest is a right that's respected in international law. It is something that people have the right to, and they should be allowed to instead of punished for expressing themselves.
Right. And what is the identification process that the government is putting forward for arresting these so-called or alleged protest organizers and opposition supporters? If they are wrongfully arrested, how are they justifying this? Oriem, are you still there?
I mean, that's one of the big problems that, if you can hear me,
I can hear you,
was
yes,
saying
now. Please continue.
that okay. So that's one of the major problems that we are seeing, is that the police are extremely vague in their wording and how they describe how and why the people who have been arrested. They use terms like incitement, but they don't explain what exactly they were inciting. But it's clear that these are people who have been, posting the placards on their social media, who have been telling people to go out onto the streets and protest peacefully. I think that's something that's important to add, because the police are saying that these protests, which haven't happened yet, are going to be violent. We don't know that. People have been saying they want to go out onto the streets to peacefully protest. So it's very arbitrary. It is a clear sign of repression of people's right to assemble, essentially.
As we talk on that same point of repression, what do you make of the government cancelling the official Independence Day celebrations? And the reason given by President Suluhu Hassan is that the funding needs to go or to be redirected to rebuilding infrastructure that was damaged during the post-elections protests. Is there anything that is actually showing on the ground as this being the plan?
Well, I mean, I can't speak to that. I mean, obviously, it sounds very noble to spend public funding on rebuilding infrastructure, but I think it's clear that that's connected to the call for protests. And I mean, these protests are supposed to be nationwide. People are calling for people to go out on the streets in all of the major regions of the country. And I think the authorities are obviously concerned about similar demonstrations as we saw during the elections, and they want to prevent that. We saw a very strong statement from the police last week, essentially blocking the protest, prohibiting them from happening. I think the authorities are very concerned about this taking place and want to prevent it from happening.
Last month, the Office of the President announced the formation of an independent commission. This would be consisting of former state officials and retired civil servants with the aim of investigating events that led to the breach of peace during and after the general elections in Tanzania. How credible is this commission, since it does not include civil society nor the political opposition, in your view as HRW?
Yeah, I apologize. I didn't hear the entirety of your question, but I understood you were asking about the commission that the president formed to investigate the...
Yeah. Do you, as Human Rights Watch, see it as credible, because it doesn't include civil society, nor does it include political opposition?
The election-related violence. I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. But just to my point about the commission, I think it's clear that it was vital that the president take some sort of action to address the election-related violence. And I think a commission was the right step, but the fact that it isn't fully representative of the different categories of people that could really provide valuable input is concerning. And we're calling on the president to sort of fix that balance so that the outcome of this investigation really reflects the truth and the breadth of all of the things that took place during the election period.
Do you think it's found as being a commission that is credible, since it doesn't include civil society or political opposition?
I mean, I think that That is a valid criticism, and that's something that should be addressed. I think that there's a huge opportunity to increase the credibility of that commission.
Let's talk more on the repression side of things in the country. Police have said that they are arresting people who commit online offences and have been closely monitoring social media in terms of protests there. Meta also reported in its December content restrictions report that it had removed and restricted access to content in Tanzania following a request from the Tanzanian Communications Regulatory Authority to restrict access to 3 Instagram accounts for allegedly violating Tanzanian law. What's your take on this repression using social media?
I mean, the sad part of it is that it's not new. This is something that has been happening for several years. The Tanzanian government, a number of years ago, put in place a raft of laws that basically restrict people's expression online. And now we are seeing the implementation of those laws through these threatened arrests and the actual arrest of people. I think it's just another way in which the Tanzanian government is restricting people's right to free expression. And I think also that it's unfortunate because the alternative would be to allow people to talk about issues that are really important to them. In this case, this was the election violence. People are wanting to call for accountability and for justice and so on. And those are reasonable calls. And also for constitutional reform. That's one of the major issues that people had during the elections. Those are valid concerns to raise. And to use the internet to weaponize it, to basically say, if you say something that we are not happy with, we are going to arrest you, I think is deeply problematic and really speaks to how far Tanzania has regressed in terms of respecting human rights over the past couple of years.
What would your overall appeal be to Tanzanian authorities?
The tide has to be stemmed. Things have to be turned around. They are getting increasingly worse. We saw the lead up to the elections be incredibly repressive. The political opposition were basically blocked from participating in the elections. One of the major candidates was put in prison. He is undergoing a trial on charges that really are unfounded. And things are just getting worse and worse and worse. The violence, I think, that we saw during the election period and the demonstrations are just a symptom of a bigger problem. So I think if the government is really serious about respecting human rights and ensuring that people's voices are heard, that they would really turn this tide around and make sure that people's rights are respected.
Oriam, thank you so much. We'll leave it there for now, and we appreciate your time and for chatting to us.
Thank you so much as well.
Oriam Nyeko is Senior Africa Researcher at Human Rights Watch and talking to us about Tanzania there. It's supposed to be a celebratory day as they mark Independence Day, but no independence of being able to protest peacefully, no independence in terms of being able to comment on social media, quite a lot of restrictions, arrests being made there, allegedly, of protest organizers and opposition supporters, lack of transparency, so there's no independence either there in terms of the general public receiving the information they need and to know and understand what's really going on in their country. I wonder what that would mean for the mood where you can't even celebrate, as the government has said, we're using the funds that would have gone to Independence Day to fix the damaged infrastructure from protests, almost in a way blaming them, to say it's your fault that we're not going to have Independence Day celebrations.
You know what? We'll talk a lot more about this story, but she hasn't been seen in public since the election. The inauguration was done at a military base in private. She's scared to see her own people. That should tell you everything that you need to know about what's going on in the country.
Right, our time now is 7:30 Central African. Let's get our news headlines. Here's Dwalani Tulongwebe.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. Making headlines, the authorities in Tanzania have urged citizens to stay away from today's planned anti-government protests over the disputed October elections. Another 230 police officers from Kenya have arrived in Haiti as part of a controversial UN-backed security force to tackle gang violence. And finally, the head of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, has stressed that Ukraine's long-term security must be guaranteed in any peace talks with Russia after meeting with President Zelensky in Brussels. I will have details on these and other stories at 8 o'clock.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Time now to find out what's going on in the world of sport, and with all the details, we say good morning to Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you so much, Peter Ndoro. We'll start with football news. Helman Mkhalele, the assistant coach of the South African men's national football team, Bafana Bafana, has slammed FIFA's decision to allow clubs to hold on to their players until just 6 days before the AFCON 2025 kicks off. The ruling breaks from the long-standing policy of releasing players 14 days before major tournaments. So with the competition set for Morocco from the 21st of December right until the 18th of January 2026, Mkhalele says the late release will severely affect preparations for South Africa and other nations.
I would say it's totally unfair and also unacceptable, because when you look at it, you're starting to make, like assumptions, saying that, FIFA, it really doesn't take African football too serious as they do with the Europeans, So you're starting to feel that you are more or less important than the other nations or the other leagues, But I believe that CAF will also need to make their point to FIFA,
So with most teams having planned to play international friendly matches at least from the 12th of this month, the decision could go a long way toward affecting those plans. Mkhalele elaborates.
It's good on the one hand, it brings more disadvantage to us, because especially in this new FIFA format where you have 48 teams and playing in different altitudes. So it really becomes difficult for African teams to plan.
We'll stay with football news. A world record run of 18 consecutive victories has set up Achraf Hakimi's inspired Morocco perfectly for the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations tournament on home soil. The streak began in June of 2024 when they edged Zambia by 2-1 in a 2026 World Cup qualifier, with the most recent a 4-0 hammering of Uganda just last month in a friendly match. So Spain have held that record since 2009 with 15 wins, a mark Morocco now overtook by defeating Congo Brazzaville 1-0 2 months ago in another World Cup qualifier. Morocco, by the way, have scored 55 goals in 18 matches and conceded just 4, while keeping 14 clean sheets in the process. It is this outstanding form, home advantage, as well as a hoped-for presence of 2025 African Player of the Year, Hakimi, that has seen Morocco installed as firm favourites to be crowned African champions. The Paris Saint-Germain fullback Hakimi sprained his ankle after being fouled in a UEFA Champions League loss to Bayern Munich earlier this year, but initial fears that he would miss the AFCON seem to be decreasing, with the coach Walid Regragui also saying that they are hoping that he will be available for at least the second match against Cape Verde for Morocco at the Africa Cup of Nations tournament. Meanwhile, Mozambique head coach Kechino Conde has named his final list of 25 players selected for the AFCON tournament, unveiling a balanced squad that also combines tournament experience with exciting new talent. The Mambas, making their 6th appearance at Africa's flagship competition, will now look to progress beyond the group stages for the very first time in their history. Conde has retained the core of the team that featured at the last edition in Cote d'Ivoire, with 16 players returning returning for another continental campaign. They are joined by 9 newcomers who will experience Total Energies AFCON for the very first time. Among those returning are goalkeepers Aranya as well as Ivan Urabal, along with seasoned defenders Mexi, Ronaldo, Bruno Langa, Efren Matola, Edmilson Dove, as well as Nene. Mozambique opened their campaign on the 24th of December against the defending champions, the Ivory Coast, aiming to make a strong start in what promises to be a highly competitive Africa Cup of Nations tournament. And finally, South Africa's national netball team, the Spar Proteas, began their title defence with a 104-25 win against Tanzania on the first day of the Africa Netball Cup in Lilongwe, Malawi on Monday. Jenny van Dijk's Chargers started like a house on fire as they had the first centre pass. Meanwhile, Elmere van der Berg earned her 50th cap for the Spar Proteas and was also quite ruthless under the pole and punished Tanzanian defenders every chance she got. Meanwhile, earlier on in the day, we saw the South African men's team taking on the neighbours Botswana in their opening match of this year's tournament, where they won that encounter 59-38. So the South African male team will face off with Zimbabwe at 2 p.m. Central African time this afternoon in their second match, while the Spar Proteas will face off with Malawi at 6 p.m. Central African time. That concludes your sports news this hour on Africa Rise and Shine. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or give us a call on +27 11714 4459. I'm back with the final sports update on Africa Rise and Shine in the next hour. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Yeah, Tanzania, Independence Day today, 1961. It should be the happiest day in people's lives. But given what we're hearing, it's shocking, isn't it?
Yeah.
The two very very popular social media activists, the Tanzanian government managed to get through to Meta and ask them to disable their accounts. That's how serious this is. Yeah. Outrageous.
It's crazy. Coming up also on the show, we go to Nigeria, where the African Petroleum Regulators have selected the country as the headquarters of the newly established body and confirmed Bengba Komolafe, head of the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, or the NUPRC. That's coming up on Rise and Shine.
Conversations are happening, and Channel Africa is at the heart of them. We tell the African story with clarity, pride, and purpose, reaching audiences that matter to your brand. Partner with us and connect your business with listeners across borders in multiple languages and markets. For partnership opportunities, sponsorship, or sales, email us at partnership@channelafrica.co.za. Channel Africa, the African Perspective.
At just 2 minutes shy of 7:40 Central African time, let's say good morning to Matapelo Mahape. She has our latest update from the world of business.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda, and good morning. South African power utility Eskom says South Africa is working on ways to support its ferrochrome industry. This as the utility announced an agreement with the Suncore Chrome and the Glencore Merafe Chrome venture yesterday. Eskom says that the memorandum of understanding with the two companies followed constructive engagements on Friday with the country's Minister of Electricity and Energy and Trade Unions. Suncore Chrome and the joint venture between Glencore and Merafe Resources had said that they are considering job cuts because of pressures, including the cost of electricity. Eskom says the energy regulator NERSA is currently reviewing an interim power tariff adjustment for the two firms, and the government is working on a longer-term mechanism on support competitive pricing for the ferrochrome sector. South Africa holds approximately 80% of the world's known chrome ore reserves, positioning the country as a key player in global ferrochrome production. And South African Trade Union Federation COSATU wanted the Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies, Solly Malatsi, to intervene in the ongoing business rescue process of the Post Bank and Post Office. The Labour Federation's parliamentary coordinator Matthew Parks made a submission on the medium-term budget policy statement to Parliament's Standing Committee on Appropriations. This is a part of the committee's ongoing public hearings on the MTBPS. The Post Office has been under business rescue since 2023. Parks says to ensure that the matter is concluded swiftly, Malatsi needs to intervene.
We have not seen progress under the business rescue practitioners. What we've seen is retrenchment of thousands of workers, the closure of many branches. We fear that's going to actually ultimately further weaken the capacity of the post office, not assist it. So we do hope the new, not so new minister, Honorable Malatsi, will be able to try to move things forward, because what we've not seen in the past years is any movement forward. But also means that Treasury also needs to honor its capital injection commitments as well.
And the South African Finance Minister Ndoro Godongwana says the key message being taken to Davos, Switzerland for the World Economic Forum in January is that South Africa is ripe for investment and ready to do business. Speaking to media at the pre-WF business breakfast, Godongwana says the trade negotiations with the United States are ongoing, adding that government is also in the process of appointing a South African ambassador to the U.S. A minister says South Africa will resume its G20 participation in 2027 following the country's exclusion from a U.S. G20 presidency next year.
We're involved in intense negotiations on trade negotiations, which is and those trade negotiations, by the way, are going very well. There may be what is attracting people a turf with the USA on what they call genocide. As a result, they are not accrediting us for G20. But it does not mean a necessary fallout with the USA. It's up to the member states to decide what to do. As far as we're concerned, if we are excluded by the USA in 2026, 2027 G20 presidents go to the United Kingdom and will resume our seat in 2027.
And the mining lobby in the Democratic Republic of Congo has requested urgent discussions with the government regarding a recent cobalt export regulations, citing legal ambiguities and compliance challenges that may disrupt global battery supply chains. Following a ban, the country launched a new quota system on the 16th of October. Major producers CMOC and Glamco received the largest quotas, while a 10% strategic reserve was retained by their relator homes. And on to this now, Morocco's Equipment and Water Minister Nazir Baraka says that the country will open a new deep water Mediterranean port next year and another on the Atlantic in 2028 as the North African country aims to replicate the success of Africa's largest port, Tangamed. Ndoro West Med, under construction on the Mediterranean, is scheduled to be operational in the second half of 2026. It will offer 800 sectors of industrial activity with plans to expand it to 5,000 hectares, surpassing Tangamed's industrial zones. A look at your financial indicators. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 449. In Botswana, it's 13 pula 15. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 55, and in Zambia, it's a 23 kwacha 10. The BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 real 43. Russia at 76 rubles 839, and in India, it's 90 rupees 8. China, it's 71.6, and in South Africa, $1 is trading at 16 rands 97 cents. $1 is trading at 74 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. A look at your commodities. Gold is trading at $4,184 and platinum at $1,647 per ounce, while the price of Brent crude oil is at $62.34 a barrel. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business News, I am Matapela Mahape.
Business News. on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. We are on Open Views Audio Bouquet. Channel 628.
Yeah, we're doing a lot of stories today, but one that's certainly in focus and on social media at the moment. Hashtag D9 has become the most popular term in Tanzania at the moment. And if you go on social media, you will see images of very deserted streets in Tanzania right now. And so we're not quite sure what's going to happen. We'll keep on top of that story for you. We're monitoring it, and hopefully we'll be able to give you a little bit of updates on that. But on social media, as I said, one's seeing empty streets, people probably staying indoors, heeding the warnings of the government, telling people Independence Day celebrations have been cancelled, and also that any protests are illegal. In South Africa, in the meantime, South Africa and Australia are deepening their tourism and trade ties with the launch of a new direct flight route between Johannesburg and Perth. Government officials say that the increased seat capacity will support tourism growth, unlock new investment opportunities, and strengthen people-to-people links across the two regions. The announcement was made at a joint briefing hosted by Qantas South African Tourism and the Gauteng Tourism Authority in Johannesburg. Channel Africa's reporter Lebahang Mabange tells us more.
South Africa says improved air connectivity remains one of the biggest levers to unlock tourism growth on the continent. Speaking at the event, South Africa's Minister of Tourism, Patricia de Lille, said the increased routes support the country's broader tourism strategy.
Increased air connectivity is fundamental to unlock tourism growth and investment. Today's announcement directly aligns with one of the 5 pillars of the Tourism Growth Partnership strategy and plan, and that's ease of access. This includes air routes, visas, and removing the hurdles that can make South Africa a destination of choice for business and leisure.
De Lille added that South Africa's international flight capacity continues to grow, with long-haul and short-haul numbers showing steady recovery.
International capacity, seat capacity to South Africa now stands at 8.5 million. That's an increase of 9.1% compared to 2024. So strong supply growth in the second half of the year has also led to double-digit seat increase from June onwards. And of these seats, the 8.5 million, 4.6 million are long-haul routes, while 3.9 million service short-haul routes.
Australia has also highlighted the significance of affordability and availability of seats in rebuilding international travel demand. Australia's Minister for Trade and Tourism, Senator John Farrell, said both countries face similar challenges as long-haul destinations.
The two things that have been most important in rebuilding confidence in the tourism industry has been the price of the fares and the volume of seats. They've been the two impediments, and as the Minister and I discussed this morning, we are both long-haul destinations, so people have to psychologically be prepared to take a long trip if they want to come to South Africa or if they want to come to Australia. And the combination of the more availability, 155,000 new seats now available, on this pathway.
Farrell also pointed to growing trade prospects between the two countries, saying a free trade agreement could further expand economic ties.
There are some countries in the world that are discouraging trade. Australia is not one of them. I didn't name anybody. Australia is pro free and fair trade, and I know South Africa is pro free and fair trade. And I've given the job to our High Commissioner of very quickly negotiating a free trade agreement so that we can build those connections. We've got this trade connection already, we've got the historical connections, we've got the people-to-people connection. Can you imagine all of the trade that we could do with these new flights with Qantas, bringing fresh fresh Australian produce into Johannesburg.
The new Johannesburg-Perth route will operate year-round, with both governments saying improved connectivity helps position the two destinations for stronger tourism and trade recovery. Reporting for Channel Africa, I am Lebogang Mabange in Johannesburg, South Africa.
7:50 Central African Time. You're still with Rise and Shine here on Channel Africa. At Channel Africa 1 is our handle across our social media platforms. Get in touch with us.
Madapiri pazoshitika. Madapiri pazoshitika.
Inogeka zingeni chihana lumbiritsidwa kukhala wachiwiri kwa mtsogoleri wa dziko la Malawi pa mwambo omwe unachitika ku nyumba ya chifumu ya Sanjika mu mzinda wa Blantyre. Ndiye pano tili ndi olemekezeka achihana. Takulandirani olemekezeka pano pa wireless ya Channel Africa pa Chinyanja Service. Amalawi ayembekezere zotani kuchokera kwa inu ngati wachiwiri winanso kwa president wa dzikolo?
Choyamba ngati vice president umagwira ntchito yopatsidwa ndi president imene yakuganizira. Ndiye malowozi athu atipatsa bwinobwino, koma ntchito yathu yayikulu ndi kuwathandiza president kuti masomphenya awo yakwanitsidwe. Pali zambiri zoti zichitike, nkhani ya njala mdziko muno, boma la udakali chimanga ndi china chomwe chili mdziko muno kuti tithandize ana families are affected. Chachiwiri kunali ma fuel shortages amene akanaliponso apo ndi apo, tionetsetse kuti pumps athu asakhale dry.
Zochitika pa nthawi ya 6 koloko kufikira 7 koloko madzulo. Lolemba mpaka lachisanu ndi Madapiri. From Cape to Cairo, Dakar to Dar es Salaam. Rise and Shine with Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda on Channel Africa.
African petroleum regulators have selected Nigeria as the headquarters for their newly established body and confirmed Bengba Komolafe, head of the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, or NUPRC, as its chair. Komolafe, who had been serving in an acting capacity, was formally elected during the inaugural Executive Committee meeting of the African Petroleum Regulators Forum, held virtually with the representatives from 16 countries in attendance. What does Nigeria's selections of AfriPerf's headquarters reveal about its growing regional influence in Africa's oil and gas regulatory landscape? Well, Channel Africa's economics reporter Innocent Samosa has more and tries to answer that question.
According to Benga Komolafe, head of the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, the initiative lays the groundwork for a more harmonized and collaborative regulatory environment across Africa. Meanwhile, integrated energy specialist Dr. Davis Tigai says the development is a significant milestone not only for Nigeria but for the continent as a whole.
Nigeria has always aimed or has had ambitions to be a regional energy hub, and hosting AfriPerf in Abuja confirms that role and sets the stage for more harmonized regulations across the continent. So what does this mean in practice? It means African regulators can start working toward unified standards, best practices, instead of fragmented rules, and we could see a consistent regulations and coordinated oversight. This makes cross-border petroleum projects easier to manage. In the bigger picture, having AfriPerf headquartered in Nigeria creates a focal point for regulatory integration.
How might Benga Komolafe's leadership shape efforts to harmonize petroleum regulations across the 16 participating African countries? Dr. Tigai explains.
Engineer Komolafe's leadership of AfriPerf is expected to be a game changer for Africa's upstream oil and gas sector. As interim chair, now confirmed chair, he was very instrumental in creating the forum with a clear goal, attracting more investment by standardizing regulations across member countries. Under his guidance, AfriPerf focused on consistent and transparent rules in every jurisdiction. The idea is simple. A unified, investor-friendly regulatory framework will boost confidence and unlock new capital inflows. Komolafe himself highlighted that the forum offers a unique opportunity to improve investor confidence by harmonizing policies and tackling common challenges.
He also shared the impact this could have on investment flows, transparency, and the future of upstream oil development on the continent.
Massive potential and economic benefits of a coordinated petroleum regulatory framework, and member countries of Africa stand to reap substantial economic benefits from a more coordinated and unified petroleum regulatory framework. Some of these advantages or benefits include increased foreign investment and growth, transparency and governance improvements, knowledge sharing and capacity building, cross-border projects and energy security, and stronger collective bargaining power, positioning not only Nigeria but the African continent as that is power hub or regional energy hub.
With Nigeria now hosting AfriPEF and providing leadership through Benga Komolafe, many believe the continent is taking a decisive step towards stronger coordination in its oil and gas sector. As stakeholders watch how this new framework unfolds, expectations are high that it will unfold greater stability, transparency, and shared growth across Africa's energy landscape. For Channel Africa News, I'm Innocent Samos in Johannesburg.
Let's go to Mozambique now. The United Nations has warned that the situation in the north of Mozambique continues to deteriorate due to prolonged non-state groups, triggering one of the largest displacement surges of the year. The Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs says that 107,000 people have fled their homes in recent weeks, pushing the total displacement to around 330,000 in just the last 4 months. Attacks by armed insurgent groups in the region have increased this year, spreading to beyond the Cabo Delgado region by provinces of Nampula and Niassa. Sherwin Brasby picks up the story for us from New York.
UN agencies have expressed grave concerns amid intensifying attacks on villages and the rapid spillover of the fighting into regions previously deemed safe, forcing tens of thousands of people to flee across northern Mozambique. People reaching safe harbors say they escaped as armed groups stormed their villages, often at night, burning homes, attacking civilians and forcing families to make a run for it, leaving all their possessions behind. For many, this is the second or third time they've been displaced. Most families now shelter in overcrowded host communities. As the head of the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs in Mozambique, Paula Emerson explained.
So far, 107,000 people have left their homes in Nampula. This is the third largest major wave of displacement that has occurred. So in the last 4 months, altogether 330,000 people were displaced this year. The majority had fled more than once. 89% had already fled in the past. They barely had time to recover when they again had to leave due to attacks or fear of attacks. These were areas that had been affected by the cyclones this year. There were 3 cyclones. A vast majority are children. 67% of them are children. There are huge concerns about the protection of people with reports of gender-based violence, women, girls being affected, but also children who are separated and unaccompanied by their carers.
Last week, the UN Emergency Relief Coordinator Tom Fletcher allocated $6 million from the Central Emergency Response Fund to help scale up life-saving support for 120,000 people displaced by violence in Nampula. UN spokesperson Stefan Dujarric.
They are now sheltering in overcrowded schools, makeshift structures, and open spaces, and also with already vulnerable families. Besides shelter, they must have limited access to safe water, protection, healthcare, and sanitation services. This is a time when cholera is spreading in the area. With stocks of critical aid mostly depleted, the funding from SURF will prioritize water, sanitation, and hygiene. Support for people in the Irati and Memba districts. It will prioritize basic household items and shelter protection and livelihood support. A reminder that as we approach the end of the year, the 2025 humanitarian appeal for Mozambique is less than 28% funded, with only $97 million received out of the $352 required.
The violence in Mozambique, led by groups aligned with the Islamic State in Central Africa, began in Cabo Delgado in 2017 and has displaced over 1.3 million people in that period. with 2025 seeing a dangerous shift as attacks spread to Nampula and Niassa provinces. Paula Emerson says their efforts are already stretched.
The humanitarians are trying to do the best that they can with available stocks, but there are major stockouts. So far, a total of 40,000, so about 40% of the total number has received some food for about 2 weeks. They're also receiving voucher assistance and some other support. But this is woefully inadequate.
A Southern African Development Community military mission to the country to help combat terrorist and violent extremism in Cabo Delgado completed its withdrawal in July 2024, with concerns that withdrawal, after achieving key security gains and improving conditions on the ground, would lead to a security vacuum that needed then to be filled by the remaining Mozambican and Rwandan forces who operate under a bilateral arrangement with Maputo. In a conflict fueled by the glut for natural resources, climate issues, and other grievances that continue to impact civilians and threaten regional stability. I'm Shervin Bryce Pease in New York.
It's 8 o'clock. It's time for your news. Here's Joalani Tulo Ngwebe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning. There's a heavy deployment of police and army personnel in Tanzania's capital Dar es Salaam and other major cities ahead of today's planned anti-government protests over the disputed October elections. The Prime Minister Mwigulu Nchemba has asked people to mark Independence Day at home, except for essential workers. The authorities in Tanzania have urged the citizens to stay away from today's planned protests. Meanwhile, Human Rights Watch says authorities have wrongly arrested alleged protest organizers and opposition supporters ahead of nationwide protests called for today. Senior Africa researcher at Human Rights Watch, Oriem Nyeko, says police are not clear about the charges against those arrested.
Police are extremely vague in their wording and how they describe how and why the people who have been arrested. They use terms like incitement, but they don't explain what exactly they were inciting. But it's clear that these are people who have been, posting the placards on their social media, who have been telling people to go out onto the streets and protest peacefully. I think that's something that's important to add, because the police are saying that these protests, which haven't happened yet, are going to be violent. We don't know that. People have been saying they want to go out onto the streets to peacefully protest. So it's very arbitrary. It is a clear sign of repression of people's right to assemble, essentially.
The Inkatha Freedom Party in South Africa says the withdrawal of the 90-day visa exemption for Palestinians is an indication of how the country's migration system has been exploited. The Department of Home Affairs has withdrawn the 90-day visa exemption for ordinary Palestinian passport holders after an investigation and recommendations by the national intelligence structures and consultations conducted within the security cluster. The department says the investigation confirmed deliberate and ongoing abuse of the 90-day visa exemption for ordinary Palestinian passport holders by Israeli actors linked to voluntary immigration efforts for residents of the Gaza Strip. IFP Member of Parliament Nhlanhla Hadebe says the latest findings reveal the poor management of the country's borders.
The latest intelligence findings confirm exactly what we raised at first, that South Africa's immigration system was exploited through organized schemes designed to relocate people from Gaza under the guise of short-term travel. What unfolded at OR Tambo Airport, from chartered private flights, one-way tickets, travelers without accommodation or return plans, and intermediaries abandoning them on arrival, represents a clear abuse of our laws and a serious security breach. South Africa cannot allow its borders to be manipulated, nor can we carry the burden of poorly coordinated relocation efforts that place both the country and vulnerable travelers
Still in South Africa, National Police Commissioner Fani Masemola has confirmed that the police have found one of the two vehicles believed to have been used in the assassination of Marius van der Merwe, who testified as witness D before the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. Masemola revealed that the bakkie was found abandoned in Alexandra Township in Johannesburg, and police are still searching for the other car. He's added that crime scene experts are inspecting the bakkie. 3 persons of interest have been identified and one has been questioned. President Cyril Ramaphosa established the commission to look into matters of criminality, political interference and corruption in the criminal justice system. Masemola briefed the media in Brakpan in the east of Johannesburg.
There was an attempted murder on Marius van der Merwe in September 2025, in which he indicated that there were 2 wild males that were following him with a bakkie. We are still looking for the murder weapon that was used for this current case now. We currently cannot indicate as to what is the motive.
Another 230 police officers from Kenya have arrived in Haiti as part of a controversial UN-backed security force to tackle gang violence. The mandate is to fight armed gangs who now control most of the capital and are expanding their presence in central Haiti. Almost 1,000 Kenyan officers have now been deployed. And finally, the head of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, has stressed that Ukraine's long-term security must be guaranteed in any peace talks with Russia after meeting with President Volodymyr Zelensky in Brussels. The Ukrainian leader is on a tour of European capitals to shore up support over concerns that a US-backed peace proposal favours Moscow. The BBC's James Landale has the details.
For all the talks of recent weeks, much remains unknown about the detail of any potential deal. Outstanding issues are what security guarantees Ukraine may get to deter future Russian attack, and Moscow's demand for the last parts of Donbass Ukraine controls. Chancellor Merz of Germany said he was sceptical about some of the details he'd seen in documents coming from the US side. But he said the talks were reaching a decisive stage and the outcome was open.
For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Cholani Tulo Mwepe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And coming up in your sports news, the Sawa world record winning streak sets up Morocco for the AFCON challenge, while South Africa is set to face off with India in the first T20 match this afternoon. Details of these and other stories coming up at 8:30.
Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa. From Africa's broadcast capital to the furthest corners of the globe, this is Rise and Shine. Every weekday mornings on Channel Africa.
We enter now the third and final hour of Rise and Shine here on Channel Africa. Connect with us via our YouTube. We live stream there at Channel Africa 1. Also on www.channelafrica.co.za. One of the stories we're looking at is 100 school children who were released on Monday in Nigeria's Niger State after they were abducted there last month from a Catholic school. We'll get analysis there from a social worker, giving us the community-based more approach and the psychosocial effects of these kidnappings being in a surge in Nigeria. I'm Asanda Beda.
And I'm Peter Ndoro. Also still in Nigeria, we speak to the Chief Press Secretary of Edo State, a state in Nigeria that's also seen its fair share of kidnappings. And we try to get to the bottom of why it's happening and what can be done. All of this still to come.
Africa, voici Abedi.
Oui, c'est moi.
Abedi est un passionné de musique dans l'âme. Il a un goût pour toutes sortes de musique et passe ses journées à écouter Channel Africa.
J'aime beaucoup la musique africaine.
Ok. Devinez quoi? Channel Africa veut aider Abedi et les mélomanes du monde entier à découvrir encore plus de musique incroyable. C'est pourquoi Channel Africa appelle les artistes africains à soumettre leur musique. Chers artistes, n'oubliez pas de nous fournir toutes vos informations pertinentes à l'email adresse musique@channelafrica.co.za. Les soumissions sont votre chance d'être entendues, mais elles ne garantissent pas une playlist. Toutes les soumissions seront soigneusement examinées pour voir si elles répondent aux exigences de notre station. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
Keep Africa in your hands. Connect to our website for all your news, sports, and cultural updates. channelafrica.co.za. Download the SABC app and take Channel Africa with you everywhere you go.
100 school children were released on Monday in Nigeria's Niger State after they were abducted last month from a Catholic school. It was one of the country's biggest mass kidnappings in recent years. The released children arrived at the government house in Niger's capital, Minna, and were handed over to state governor. Some of the abducted children were as young as 6. Nigerian government officials did not publicly comment on how the rescue was conducted, and it was unclear whether the children had been freed through negotiations, ransom payments, or a security operation. The abduction caused outrage over worsening insecurity in northern Nigeria. Earlier, we spoke to our correspondent in Nigeria, Jonathan James Liamongo, and we now continue with this chat and this story, and we're joined by social worker who works with some of the victims of kidnapping in the state of Edo in Nigeria, leftist Owubu Usigbe. Leftist, thank you for joining us. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning. You are welcome. Nice having you this morning.
Children having been abducted, and some teachers have been released yesterday in Niger State, we understand. But is this enough to allay the fears that continue to ripple through the country?
Yes, if I may hear you clearly, you know, Nigeria is a very big country. So it's not just only in the north, only in the south. Everywhere there are crimes everywhere. Why those ones are making headline? Because they are more in numbers. As we speak, you can't cross between one state to another state in some part of Nigeria. I'm using my own state, which is Edo State, as a case study. Edo State is like the center, just like Niger State. It networks between the west, the east, and if you are also coming from the north, it's also network you, or you are going to the north, it's also network you. It has even gone in some part of my own state, it has even gone as far as not just only that state, but if you are in your house in some local government, if you are in your house, they will come and pick you in your own house. That is how bad it is.
So what is contributing to this rise in kidnappings in Nigeria? What are the factors that are contributing to it?
There are several factors. First, there is a disconnect between the government policy and the people. Government make policy without consulting the people. And there is high level of youth restiveness. And those who are migrating from the north, they call them this Islamic sect, ISWAP. Because they don't go to school, the level of poverty and illiteracy is very high over there. The elites capitalize on that and start using them to perpetrate this crime. These people, they don't go to school. They don't even know their parents. As they give birth to them, they give them to one teacher to go and be teaching them. When they start begging, they don't acquire skills. These are things that were building up for years, but government never thought it wise to look into it. Today, it has become a social problem. that we are now running helter scatter. And even in that, the government still don't find it need to look into those who will be recruited to join this set of terrorists. That the government just keep playing politics. Government is more interested in politics than securing life and people. The citizens, the constitution of this country place priority. It said that the primary purpose of government is security and welfare, which means the founding fathers know the importance of security. Well, those who are managing the affairs of government turn their eyes and only interested in their individual welfare and not the citizens' welfare. These are some of the issues that are giving birth to criminalities and terrorists to spread in Nigeria.
At 8:15 Central African Time, we continue talking Nigerian kidnappings, speaking to a social worker who works with some of the victims or survivors of kidnapping in Edo State, Leftist Owubu Osigbe. Leftist, the work that you've done on a social worker front, when these survivors come home or are released from the time they were kidnapped, what state are they in? What do you see? I mean, we're talking about children as young as 6 in this latest incident.
Yes, some of them, you see the psychological trauma, the emotional trauma in their faces, and this gives cause for worry, because most of them felt betrayed by government. After being held captive for days, for weeks and months, their families are meant to go through emotional trauma to raise money. Some went as far as borrowing from financial institutions just to save their loved ones. And when they are released, nobody cares about them, to give them counseling, rehabilitation. Sometimes we just do ours because we are NGOs. You just do the little we can. Because sometimes it's far away. It's good when you are talking to your clients of this nature. You have one-on-one contact. Some that are close, we have one-on-one contact with them. But lack of resources will not allow us to continue. But the trauma still remains with them. Most of them we speak to, they will tell you they don't even wish their enemy to have such experience. That these criminals and terrorists, they are young people, young youths, less than 30 years. They flog them, they tie them down, they don't even give some food, so they give them little meal. And when they want to video them to their family to see how serious they are, this little one begin to beat them. So the torture is so much that we expect the government of Nigeria and in my own state, Edo State, to have a rehabilitation center where such people can stay. There are numerous social workers in government, but no facilities to accommodate for them to work.
And let's talk on that, because just for the sake of time, I want to get this in, Leftist. We know that the president declared a security emergency. He also deployed 50,000 police. What needs to be implemented, though, on the community-trusted approach side of things to security, in addition to these changes and deployments of police and army personnel? You touch on one of those, I guess, community centers.
Yes. For us, as a country, if you take the size of police or the size of our security men, they are not enough. You don't expect one policeman to protect 500 people. how can such security work? For me, I think we should go back to the basis of security, which is community policing. Not this one they are calling state. Let the community own their security. They work with other security agencies because they are in the community. They know who comes in and who goes out. When crimes are committed, the community knows these are people who have entrusted our security in their hand. They can quickly call them for quick response. So I think that is the best way to secure our state and our country right now. Not the state police. State police is like flogging the dead horse. Let it be community police. Then the local government should be responsible for their equipment and their welfare.
Let's leave it there for now, leftist. I know you want to continue, but we are out of time. But thanking you again for chatting to us.
Thank you very much.
Leftist Owubu Osigbe is a social worker in the state of Edo in Nigeria, giving us the psychosocial as well as community approach to this security threats happening in Nigeria. What needs to be done? What has he seen? He's shared those insights with us.
Ukatili wa kijinsia unaharibu maisha na kutenga jamii. Hutokea nyumbani, shuleni, kazini na mara nyingi kwa ukimya. Lakini hauwezi kuendelea. Ukiona, ongea. Ikiwa unaumia, funguka, kwa sababu kutofanya lolote sio chaguo. Sikiliza vituo vyote 19 vya redio kuanzia Jumatano ya tarehe 23 Julai kwenye mijadala, ushauri, tamthilia, maonyesho ya elimu na mahojiano na wataalamu, manusura, watunga sheria na nchi nzima iliyoathirika na ukatili wa kijinsia kwenye vituo vyako pendwa vya redio. Piga simu 0800 428 428 ili kuripoti unyanyasaji au kupata msaada. GBV ikomeshwe na wewe. Ujumbe huu umeletwa kwenu na shirika la SABC.
Call us on +27 63 406 9126 and contribute to the conversation. Your morning companion with the stories that matter. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
8:22 Central African Time. We are watching a number of stories today, including Tanzania. We believe that the internet may be shut down there, and so we're struggling at the moment to try and see what people are saying, and that makes sense if that's the case. This is something that the Tanzanian authorities have done before. The Tanzanian minister declared yesterday that the switch off of the internet tomorrow, and people are speculating that these kinds of actions may spell real pressure for Samia Suluhu Hassan.
Seeing a bit of footage though as well on social media. It looks like things are about to flare up if they haven't already.
Yeah, look, I mean, this is tense, and I don't think that we fully appreciate just how angry people are, especially given what happened on October 29. People still don't know where some of their loved ones are. They disappeared. We hear stories of the cover-up by the authorities where bodies were taken, buried in shallow graves, and some incinerated to get rid of the evidence. And without accountability, transparency, it's going to be very difficult, I think, for President Samia Suluhu Hassan to move forward from this situation.
Right. Because even that footage is from last night. We don't see anything from today at all on social media.
All right, we'll keep on top of that story for you. We'll see if we can try and get some information outside of Tanzania today. In the meantime, the United Nations has warned that the situation in northern Mozambique continues to deteriorate due to prolonged non-state groups triggering one of the largest displacement surges of the year. The Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs says that 107,000 people had fled their homes in recent weeks, pushing the total displacement to around 330,000 in just 4 months. Showen Braspies has the story.
UN agencies have expressed grave concerns amid intensifying attacks on villages and the rapid spillover of the fighting into regions previously deemed safe, forcing tens of thousands of people to flee across northern Mozambique. People reaching safe harbors say they escaped as armed groups stormed their villages, often at night, burning homes, attacking civilians and forcing families to make a run for it, leaving all their possessions behind. For many, this is the second or third time they've been displaced. Most displaced families now shelter in overcrowded host communities. As the head of the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs in Mozambique, Paula Emerson explained.
So far, 107,000 people have left their homes in Nampula. This is the third largest major wave of displacement that has occurred. So in the last 4 months, altogether 330,000 people were displaced this year. The majority had fled more than once. 89% had already fled in the past. They barely had time to recover when they again had to leave due to attacks or fear of attacks. These were areas that had been affected by the cyclones this year. There were 3 cyclones. A vast majority are children. 67% of them are children. There are huge concerns about the protection of people with reports of gender-based violence, women, girls being affected, but also children who are separated and unaccompanied by their carers.
Last week, the UN Emergency Relief Coordinator Tom Fletcher allocated $6 million from the Central Emergency Response Fund to help scale up life-saving support for 120,000 people displaced by violence in Nampula. UN spokesperson Stefan Dujarric.
They are now sheltering in overcrowded schools, makeshift structures, and open spaces, and also with already vulnerable families. Besides shelter, they must have limited access to safe water, protection, healthcare, and sanitation services. This is a time when cholera is spreading in the area. With stocks of critical aid mostly depleted, the funding from SURF will prioritize water, sanitation, and hygiene. Support for people in the Irati and Memba districts. It will prioritize basic household items and shelter protection and livelihood support. A reminder that as we approach the end of the year, the 2025 humanitarian appeal for Mozambique is less than 28% funded, with only $97 million received out of the $352 required.
The violence in Mozambique, led by groups aligned with the Islamic State in Central Africa, began in Cabo Delgado in 2017 and has displaced over 1.3 million people in that period, with 2025 seeing a dangerous shift as attacks spread to Nampula and Niassa provinces. Paula Emerson says their efforts are already stretched.
The humanitarians are trying to do the best that they can with available stocks, but there are major stockouts. So far, a total of 40,000, so about 40% of the total number has received some food for about 2 weeks. They're also receiving voucher assistance and some other support. But this is woefully inadequate.
A Southern African Development Community military mission to the country to help combat terrorist and violent extremism in Cabo Delgado completed its withdrawal in July 2024, with concerns that that withdrawal, after achieving key security gains and improving conditions on the ground, would lead to a security vacuum that needed then to be filled by the remaining Mozambican and Rwandan forces who operate under a bilateral arrangement with Beda, in a conflict fueled by the glut for natural resources, climate issues, and other grievances that continue to impact civilians and threaten regional stability. I'm Shervin Bryce Pease in New York.
So that report by Show and Brycebees in New York City about what's happening in Mozambique. But the big story today, and I've got to tell you, we're struggling in terms of trying to get information out of Tanzania. If you are able, if you know somebody that's in Tanzania and you have contacts in Tanzania, please get hold of us. We'd love to find out a little bit more what's happening on the ground. There were images that we saw in I think it was Arusha last night, people that were walking through the streets, literally getting ready and saying that we are ready for what's coming tomorrow. And I've been on social media, and some of the posts, I'm not sure if they're coming from inside Tanzania, but one says, today marks the 40th day since our brothers were brutally killed by Samia during the hashtag MO29 protest. Today is the day we demand free Tanganyika from black colonialism. Hashtag D9 repost. So those are the kinds of messages that we're seeing on social media. Very difficult to see whether it was yesterday because there's very little, it looks like, today, and that's probably because the government's shut down the internet.
Right now, though, let's say good morning to Jolani Tulongwepe again. She's got our news headlines. Still to come on the show, we have our gender-based violence feature. It's Tuesday, so that will come after our economics update coming later with Matapelo Mohape. Right now, though, 8:30 Central African Time.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective. SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning. Making headlines is heavy deployment of police and army personnel in Tanzania's capital, Dar es Salaam, and other major cities ahead of today's planned anti-government protests over the disputed October elections. The Inkatha Freedom Party in South Africa says the withdrawal of the 90-day visa exemption for the Palestinians is an indication of how the country's migration system has been exploited. And finally, Cambodia's defense ministry says 6 Cambodian civilians have now been killed since a renewed flare-up of hostilities with Thailand started yesterday. I will have details on these and other stories at 9 o'clock.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Let's catch you up in the world of sport, and I've got to say I'm a very happy bunny because yesterday I stayed up late watching my favourite team, Manchester United, demolish Wolves. But Peter, let's not get excited. Wolves are the worst team in the Premier League at the minute. We won 4-1, but I will celebrate nevertheless. Let's get your other details though. Here's Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you so much, Peter. Very good morning once again from the sports desk. So a world record run of 18 consecutive victories has set up Achraf Hakimi, inspired Morocco perfectly for the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations campaign on home soil. The streak began in June of 2024 when they edged Zambia by 2-1 in a 2026 World Cup qualifier, with the most recent a commanding 4-0 win over Uganda just last month in an international friendly match. Spain, by the way, had held the record since 2009 with about 15 wins, a mark Morocco overtook by defeating Congo-Brazzaville 1-0 2 months ago in another World Cup qualifier. Morocco have scored 55 goals in 18 matches and conceded just 4, while also keeping 14 clean sheets. It's this outstanding form, home advantage, as well as a hoped-for presence of 2025 African Player of the Year, Hakimi, that has seen Morocco installed as firm favourites to be crowned African champions. champions. Paris Saint-Germain fullback Hakimi sprained his ankle after being found in a UEFA Champions League final loss to Bayern Munich, but initial fears that he would miss the AFCON seem to be decreasing by the day. Well, Burkina Faso head coach Brahma Traore has announced his final 25-man squad for the 2025 Total Energies CAF Africa Cup of Nations in Morocco, combining established internationals with a new generation of players that is aiming now to make an impact on the continental stage. The Stallions, drawn in Group E alongside Algeria, Equatorial Guinea and Sudan, will look to build on recent strong AFCON performances as they chase a deep run in the tournament. The squad features a balanced core of Europe-based professionals as well as domestic talents, with Traore also prioritizing positional depth as well as competitiveness across all departments. Burkina Faso have opted to submit 25 players, 3 below the maximum allowance of 28, signalling confidence in a tight and well-defined group. In some cricket news now, South Africa's Proteas batter David Miller says he's eager to play at both next year's T20 World Cup in Sri Lanka and India, as well as the 50-over tournament on home soil in 2027. He does, however, concede that it will be difficult with the amount of talent in the team now and all the players fighting for places. Miller is back in the squad for the T20 series against India that is starting today, having also just recovered from a hamstring injury, and says he's yet to have a conversation with coach Shukri Conrad about his future.
No, I don't think there's really one recipe to win a World Cup. I think it's it takes a team effort, takes a group effort, should I say, management and players included. And I think it's just standing up when the moments. That's how I see it personally. So I think looking back on that previous World Cup where we got to the final. I thought it was a fantastic final, obviously, just getting short at the end there. But all in all, we found ways to win. There were some very, very close games throughout that World Cup for us.
And finally, Live Golf Chief Executive Officer Scott O'Neill is optimistic the tour will secure official world golf ranking points for players in 2026. The Breakaway Tour, which launched back in 2022, has been locked out of the OWGR because of its 54-hole no-cut closed field model, but they believe gaining ranking points could be transformative. It would automatically enable more Live players to qualify for majors and remove one of the biggest remaining barriers between the league and the established golf ecosystem. O'Neill has described ongoing talks with OWGR as encouraging. The headline change, which is said to help facilitate the ranking shifts, is the move from 54 to a much more traditional 72-hole tournaments. Whether this a concession or a calculated step toward legitimacy on its own terms remains to be seen. But O'Neill says the decision is also driven by commercial reality. And that concludes your sports news this morning on Africa Rise and Shine. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, our email address is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Call us as well on +27 11714 4459. I'm back with more sports news with the On The Move team in the next hour. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
It's the day before we wrap up the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. And I wonder how far we've come in that fight, and that's the question we always ask every year. But I know some things were planned around that, and we'll also be talking about that topic. We continue, in fact, to shine the spotlight on gender-based violence here on Rise and Shine on Tuesdays. In fact, Channel Africa does their own other programs, do their own coverage of gender-based violence. I know Palisa and Benjamin have theirs on Mondays, and we'll be joined by them later to tell us what's happening on today's program for that show. But for right now, yes, it's still Rise and Shine, and still with Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda, the same people.
Yeah, yes, indeed.
Hasn't changed.
And talking about gender-based violence, we're hoping to talk to somebody in a short while about how women can protect themselves. It's almost got to a point now where you have to be prepared for the physical violence, and self-defense is becoming more and more of an issue in terms of being able to defend yourself in a situation like that. So we'll be unpacking that coming up shortly.
Gender-based violence is destroying lives and tearing communities apart. It happens in homes, in schools, at workplaces, and too often in silence. But it doesn't have to continue. If you see it, speak out. If you are hurting, reach out. Because doing nothing is not an option. Listen to all 19 SABC radio stations from Wednesday, 23rd of July for hard talk, discussions, advice, dramas, educational shows, and interviews around GBV with experts, survivors, lawmakers, and the whole country affected by gender-based violence. For all your favorite SABC radio stations, call 0800 428 428 to report abuse or get help. GBV, it ends with you. This message is brought to you by the SABC. Conversations are happening, and Channel Africa is at the heart of them. We tell the African story with clarity, pride, and purpose, reaching audiences that matter to your brand. Partner with us and connect your business with listeners across borders in multiple languages and markets. For partnership opportunities, sponsorship, or sales, email us at partnership@channelafrica.co.za. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Let's find out what's happening in the world of business. Here's Matapelo Mahape to get us an update.
Business News.
Thank you, Asanda, and good morning. South African power utility Eskom says that South Africa is working on ways to support its ferrochrome industry. This as the utility announced an agreement with the Samanco Chrome and the Glencore Merafe Chrome venture yesterday. Eskom says the memorandum of understanding with the two companies followed constructive engagements on Friday with the country's Minister of Electricity and Energy and Trade Unions. Samanco Chrome and the joint venture between Glencore and Merafe Resources had said they are considering job cuts because of pressures including the cost of electricity. Eskom says the energy regulator NERSA is currently reviewing an interim power tariff adjustment for the two firms, and the government is working on a longer-term mechanism to support competitive pricing for the ferrochrome sector. South Africa holds approximately 80% of the world-known chrome ore reserves, positioning the country as a key player in global ferrochrome production. And the mining lobby in the Democratic Republic of Congo has requested urgent discussions with the government regarding recent cobalt export regulations, citing legal ambiguities and compliance challenges that may disrupt global battery supply chains. Following a ban, the country launched a new quota system on the 16th of October. Major producers CMOC and Glencore received the largest quotas, while a 10% strategic reserve was retained by the regulator ARCOM. And African petroleum regulators have chosen Nigeria as the headquarters of the newly established African Petroleum Regulators Forum, AfriPerm, and elected Benga Komolafe, head of the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, as its chair. The decision made during AfriPerm inaugural executive committee meeting with representatives from 16 countries highlights Nigeria's increasing regional influence in Africa's oil and gas regulatory framework. Integrated energy specialist Davis Tsikaye says the development is a significant milestone for the continent.
Engineer Komolafe's leadership of AfriPerm is expected to be a game changer for Africa's upstream oil and gas sector. He was very instrumental in creating the forum with a clear goal: attracting more investment by standardizing regulations across member countries. Under his guidance, AfriPerm focused on consistent and transparent rules in every jurisdiction. The idea is simple: a unified, investor-friendly regulatory framework will boost confidence and unlock new capital inflows.
And Morocco's Equipment and Water Minister Nizar Baraka says that the country will open a new deep water Mediterranean port next year and another on the Atlantic in 2028 as the North African country aims to replicate the success of Africa's largest port, Tangier Med. Ndoro Mest, under construction on the Mediterranean, is scheduled to be operational in the second half of 2026. It will offer 800 hectares of industrial activity with plans to expand it to 5,000 hectares, surpassing Tengamed's industrial zones. Onto this now, social media platform and forum-style website Reddit has confirmed it will comply with the new Australian ban on under-16s using social media, which comes into effect tomorrow. It said it would close accounts of aged 15 and under and implement age verification. Reddit said it was doing so despite considering the legislation to be legally erroneous. A look at your financial indicators. One US dollar in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 449. In Botswana, it's 13 pula 15. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 55. And in Zambia, it's 23 kwacha 10. The BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 real 43. Russia at 76 rubles 39. India, it's 90 rupees 8. While in China, it's 7 yuan 6. And in South Africa, $1 is trading at 16 rands 97 cents. $1 is trading at 74 to the British pound and 85 to the euro. A look at your commodities. Gold is trading at $4,184 and platinum at $1,647 per ounce, while the price of Brent crude oil is at $62.34 a barrel. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business News, I am Matapula Mahape.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Be inspired. Stay informed. Channel Africa, the beauty of life. Now available anytime, anywhere with our new app.
Yeah, today is Independence Day in Tanzania. Yeah, 1961 on this day, Tanganyika got its independence from Britain, and that set up, of course, what later became known as Tanzania. And December 9 has since then been celebrated as Independence Day. Sadly, though, fast forward to 2025, and Independence Day celebrations have been cancelled this year by the President, Samia Suluhu Hassan. And she says that the money that's supposed to be used for the celebrations will instead be used to repair infrastructure that was damaged earlier in the year, around the election time. Now, we don't know if that is a genuine reason or more about concerns that she has about what might happen in terms of this uprising. There are reports that more than 3,000 people were killed in protests October 9, with the heavy hand of the police and then the massive cover-up that took place soon after that. So today, #D9, which represents the protests on today's Independence Day, and there has been a call to protest the actions of October 29. We can't tell you right now exactly what's going on inside the country because we believe the internet has been shut down, and so it's very difficult to get information out of the country, but we'll keep on top of that story because it is an important one. I think that maybe President Samia Suluhu Hassan may be surprised by the fallout that she's received. The African Union, SADC, have all said these elections just weren't free and fair. These elections are not representative of the will of the people. She claims she's got 98% of the vote. However, the inauguration was done in private at a military barracks, and also she hasn't made any public appearances since the election. And so for somebody who has enjoyed such a huge majority in terms of the vote of the people, it's surprising how she is, what it looks like, staying away out of public view due to fear. If you have any information coming out of Tanzania, please contact us. We'd love to try and get on top of this story for us because it is a very, very important one.
The Morning Switch Weekend with the Shy Guy.
The story that takes us to Zambia. There are two men actually that were sentenced to prison for the plot to kill the president with witchcraft. You go like, what? So these guys were arrested actually in Lusaka. And what was found on them was a live chameleon. Can you believe that? Animal tails and bottles of concoction. That law takes us back to 1914, which is the Witchcraft Act. I can imagine now arrested and they go to jail for the next 2 years. You know, I presume that when you get to jail, they get to ask you actually, what is it that you committed? Now, this is the first of its kind, by the way, for somebody to be arrested for such. They in Pemba, whenever they pass, hey, Chikanga, hey, Uloya, hey, Mulosi. And imagine here I am in these early hours of the mornings, I get to talk about witchcraft.
Saturday and Sunday mornings belong to the Morning Switch. 3 to 6 a.m. Central African Time. From Cape to Cairo, Dakar to Dar es Salaam. Rise and shine with Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda on Channel Africa.
Coming up after Rise and Shine is On the Move with Palesa Tau and Benjamin Mushatama. Palesa is in studio now to tell us what to expect. Good morning.
Good morning.
And happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday to you guys.
We're both wearing blue shirts today.
Yes, we are.
It's a blue day.
Matchy, matchy. All right, you know, the first year in university can be a little daunting.
Yeah.
Firstly, because it's not like high school. It's nothing like it. But it can also take you aback in terms of like your results at the end of the first year. And you're like, but I was an A student in high school, and all of a sudden that's not the reality. So many things happen in the first year as a student, and whenever they feel failure, we'll be speaking about how they can turn that failure into fuel for the coming years, that readjustment process to know, things are different now, but this is how you readjust to a better 2026. So we'll be chatting about that. And then we go in the cubicle. Today we'll be unpacking what a job search plan looks like. Obviously, a lot of people in January like, oh, maybe I'm looking for a new job and they want to get started. But actually now is the time to get started. And if you don't have the right plan, you might not have the right results.
Goodness gracious. Give us an example of a job search plan.
So one thing is, you know, finding the right time.
Yeah.
I'll say first, I'm not the HR.
Yes.
I'm not the HR expert here. But, you know, when you find quieter times when people are like having fun, let's say Easter times, even now in December, people aren't really applying that much for jobs at this time of the year. And that maybe is your opportunity to start doing the most.
What I know traditionally, December's a difficult time because everyone's waiting for their 13th check and then they resign in January.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, you'll see on the 5th of January how crazy it gets in terms of resignations.
Yeah.
Because the 13th checks have come through.
Wow.
Yeah. So we'll see. I'm fascinated.
And that point system for varsity is a shocker for a high schooler coming in first year. I remember at that time where you're like, what do you mean I must gain a certain amount of points? I thought I just
pass like I used to pass.
So now there's the tutorials that you need to pass and the essays that you need to hand in on time and make sure you pass those, plus exams. It's hectic.
Plus also high school, you learn to remember things.
Yeah.
University is about using your mind.
True.
And that jump is quite hard for a lot of kids who are used to cramming and committing to memory. And now suddenly they have to apply knowledge. And it's like, okay, which part of my brain do I use here now?
To do that. And don't forget the social aspect as well, which is a big change. Maybe you've left home and there's so many social things that are happening at the same time that can impact your academic journey too.
All right. Good luck to our young ones. You guys will manage. You'll manage.
Oh, is it me? All right. What are we doing? Oh, okay. Palesa, thanks very much indeed. That's what's coming up in a short while after the 9 o'clock news.
Você é fluente em português? É apaixonado por rádio e quer trabalhar na África do Sul? Você tem documentos que o qualificam para trabalhar na África do Sul? Nesse caso, podemos ter uma oportunidade para você trabalhar no Canal África. Envie seu currículo e demonstração para Canal África at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Lembre-se, se você não receber alguma resposta nossa em 14 dias, isso significa que você não foi selecionado. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
The sound of Africa is evolving. Experience our new mobile app. Free to download, free to connect.
So, South Africa continues to battle alarmingly high rates of gender-based violence, leaving many women feeling vulnerable and increasingly anxious about their personal safety. And this climate has contributed to a noticeable rise in the number of women seeking firearm competency training and turning to self-defense as a form of protection. For this week's GBV feature, that's gender-based violence, we explore what's driving this shift and what it says about the country's broader safety landscape and whether arming oneself is an empowering option or a sign of deepening insecurity. We're joined now by founder and director and head coach of Storm Combat, Ivana Rees. Ivana, thanks so much indeed for joining us and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Peter. Thank you so much.
Ivana, I'm curious, from your perspective, are you seeing an increase in the number of women that are taking up firearms or self-defense training recently?
Peter, yes. I think there has been a steady increase. This has not just been noticeable in the last, 6 months or so. This has been a steady increase over the past several years, and the numbers continue to grow.
So, I suppose in the end, most of us are in victim mode. After training, is there a shift? Are we able to protect ourselves in situations?
Peter, yes. I think one of the loud and clear messages that I would like to give the listeners this morning, especially the ladies out there, is that with the right training, you absolutely can defend yourself against a bigger, larger, stronger attacker. And this applies whether you're a woman or a man facing a significantly bigger or stronger attacker, because everything that we teach is not based on size or strength. It's based on biomechanics, leverage, understanding and detecting pre-attack indicators, being able to read the situation, and ideally get out of the situation before having to resort to your self-defense training and skills. But if left with no other option, the training certainly does help you to defend. And we've had a number of students over the years that we've personally trained who have used their training successfully in real street situations.
Do you think that self-defense now has become an essential skill for women?
I think it absolutely is, yes. I think it's an essential skill for everybody, certainly living in this country in South Africa. Number one, it increases your sense of freedom. People are restricted in their movements, because of a lack of training. So people are afraid to move around as they would normally, perhaps in another country where they would feel more secure. I think that self-defense training has far-reaching consequences beyond just having that skill in the moment when you need it. It affects the way that you walk. It affects the way that you interact in a boardroom. It just has far-reaching consequences in all areas of your life. But yes, answering the question directly, I do believe that, Peter, definitely, yeah.
And there are now women turning to firearms as well. Are we seeing an increase in that as well?
There has been certainly an increase in women seeking firearms training. I think one of the points that has to be emphasized with firearms training is, and it's a cautionary point, is that women will often go and purchase a firearm, go and get their competency, get their license, and then carry that firearm without constant training. Unless you are prepared to be on the shooting range at least once a week and training tactically with that firearm, you might as well not have it, because the speed with which you need to be able to access that firearm and the ability to move behind cover and to read a situation in a tactical, from a tactical perspective, is something that comes with training. And a lot of women, a lot of women are purchasing firearms thinking that, well, if I just have a firearm either on my body or in my handbag, I'm safe. That's not completely the full story. It does require constant training.
And then very briefly, if you can, how young can we start our young girls?
We have in our club young girls starting, they join the adults class. From the age of 10, they're already training with the adults. And we don't have specific classes for women only because, again, that gives a woman a false sense of security. A woman defending against another woman does not experience the force and the power that a man has.
Right.
That is why we have mixed classes. And women will train with women, but then at a certain point in the lesson, we will get one of the strongest guys in the class to attack them. And once that woman realizes that they are fully capable of shutting down that attack, that is when the sense of real empowerment starts to happen. And the same with our young girls.
We've run out of time, unfortunately, but I want to thank you so much indeed for giving us some inspiration there. Thanks so much for your time.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Peter.
That's Ivana Reese, and that's us.
That's a great chat and a great topic to this. Thank you so much for that. Asanda Beda signing out.
Peter Ndoro, and have a great day. The news is next with Twalani Tulongwepe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Top stories: Asaba, a report of Sudan's Air Force bombings on civilians and a heavy police presence in Tanzania. Good morning. Sudan's Air Force has carried out bombings in which at least 1,700 civilians have died in attacks on residential neighborhoods, markets, schools and camps for displaced people. This is according to an investigation into air raids in the country's civil war by the Sudanese Witness Project. Its analysis indicates that the Air Force has used unguided bombs in populated areas. The data focuses on attacks by warplanes, which only the Sudanese Armed Forces is capable of operating. Its rival, the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, does not have aircraft but launches drone strikes. The RSF has intentionally condemned for allegedly carrying out ethnic massacres in Sudanese Western Darfur region, triggering charges of genocide by the United States. There's heavy police deployment and army personnel in Tanzania's capital Dar es Salaam and other major cities ahead of today's planned anti-government protests over the disputed October elections. The Prime Minister Mwigulu Nchemba has asked people to mark Independence Day at home, except for essential workers. The authorities in Tanzania have urged citizens to stay away from today's protests. Meanwhile, Human Rights Watch says authorities have wrongly arrested alleged protest